I'll be right back. We got 3 minutes, right?
All right, you're the host again.
Great, okay.
And it says it's still recording. So I think I set up a button earlier on, Leslie, that this should be able to go straight to audio file.
Great.
Or straight to a,
Can you tell me, Leslie, again, how to do mute everybody on entry?
Under participants, there's more. There's mute, unmute, and then there's more options. And then I think it's the first one. And Sue, it says that participants are displayed in the following order. The ones allowed to talk, so it will be the CAC members first, and then participants with their hand raised. So I think they will reshift the order naturally. Participants that raise their hand first are displayed at the top. Participants without their hand are last.
So I can actually not allow participants to unmute themselves as well. But I think I'm not going to do that right now. I think I'll just let everybody unmute themselves when they want to talk.
Yeah, you unmuting them could also be a cue to tell them that it's their turn for public comment.
Yeah. I think I'm going to let them unmute themselves though, rather than me unmute them.
Yeah.
We'll see how that goes. I think I know how to do it if I need to. I can check that box. And okay. I think we're more or less ready. Hi, Peter.
Is Lee here?
Lee's here.
Hello.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me? I want to
Yep.
just do a test.
Yes.
You can hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, we can hear you.
Leslie, are you still there? Maybe I'll let you, do you want to do the, I think you have the best handle on how people are going to participate for public comment. Do you want to give a little intro when we go?
Yeah, I'm going to open up the script. So I need a few seconds.
Would you like me to start sharing my screen? I have the virtual meeting instructions and the agenda.
Yeah, that I could read off of. That would be great.
Oh, Sue, it looks like you have to allow me to share my screen.
Second.
Just got Teams down.
Okay, can you try it now, Lee? Does it work?
Yep. I'm going to share my screen.
Neaten up my room a little bit.
There we go.
Yeah, I wanted to open the script that you created, Lee, the step-by-step, just so I could say the full.
Sure. Okay, I have to pull it up. Hold on.
I can pull it up too.
I'm also trying to find it. Apologies for not having it.
Should have it in an email somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. That's
I
exactly.
know.
I got it. Hold on.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and are we live already?
We're live.
Okay, well, welcome everybody to the May 18 Balboa Reservoir CEC meeting. welcome. And due to the COVID-19 health emergency and to protect city employees and the public, we are holding this CAC meeting for Balboa Reservoir through this virtual medium. As the public, you will be able to hear and see the meeting and presentation through the Zoom application or through a modern web browser on a computer or mobile device by going to the following link, tinyurl.com/May18BRCAC. For future reference, this will likely be the same link and is also the office hours one if you cannot find it. The Zoom meeting ID is 91969648584, and the password is 143551. If you do not have internet access, you can also access this meeting by dialing 669-900-9128 and then follow the verbal instructions. You dial in the same meeting ID and then the same password. Note that upon entry, you will be automatically muted. And for your privacy, you may wish to join via audio. If you choose to turn your camera on, we recommend that you are mindful of your background, please. Sue, do you mind just doing the public comment just so that I'm not talking for a long time?
So during public comment, you will raise your hand in the raise hand feature to say that you want to have comment during the public comment period. And I will be kind of checking on folks to sort of make sure that you're muted when you're not speaking. So if you will unmute yourself when you are going to speak, but we'll try to keep everybody on mute if you're not speaking so that we're not picking up background noise and other stuff. So if you just check when you're speaking to unmute yourself.
And if you're not familiar with the raise hand method, right now would be a good time to just ensure that you know where it is. So it is in the participants tab. When you go to participants, you will see yourself, and at the bottom, you will see the raise hand option. If you are calling in, you will be pressing *9 to be able to raise your hand. Please wait for public comment to be announced.
Okay. Are we ready to call the meeting to order?
Yes, go for it. Thanks.
Okay. So I hereby call the meeting to order, and I will call roll. When I call your name, I'm going to do it alphabetical order. If you could unmute yourself and say present. Michael Ahrens.
Present.
Bridget Davila. Not here. Christine Godinez is still excused for maternity. Amy O'Hare.
Here.
Okay, Maurice Rivers.
Present.
Okay, Mark Tang.
I'm here.
Okay, Peter Tam. Peter Tam is not here. And I am John Winston, I'm the chair.
Tam is muted, I think.
Oh, I'm here. Present.
Oh, Peter's here. I thought I saw you. Okay. Staff, we have Lee Lutinsky, Sung Young Hong, and Sue Exline. As far as I'm on my list here anyway, there are other people as well.
I'm here.
Okay.
Bridget.
Oh, Bridget, you're here. Good. Thank you.
Yeah.
So everybody's here except for Christine. Okay. Meeting overview. We got 3 agenda items. The first is an action item with a resolution regarding the Ocean Geneva Avenue corridor. The second agenda item is a presentation on the project schedule and approval process. And the third is a presentation of the development agreement. There are some updates. There is now a virtual office hour session. The next one, we've had 2 already. The next one will be from 4 until 5:30 on Thursday. I believe you can go to the Balboa Reservoir CAC, search for that, go to the website, Planning Department website, and you'll see a link to that where you can use the same Zoom that we're using now to get into the meeting. So yeah, you can talk about any topics that the public may want to discuss. It's much more informal than this meeting, and you can speak out of turn, and it's actually quite nice. Second update, the Planning Commission project adoption hearing is scheduled for Thursday, May 28th, beginning at 1 p.m. The commission materials are posted on the CAC website, and the meeting agenda will be posted when it's published. And okay, next item is we approve the April 27th meeting minutes. Anybody want to move to approve?
Yeah, I've read them and I actually think they're very, very good. So I couldn't find any mistakes or errors and I move to approve. This is Mike Ahrens.
Okay, second.
I second that.
Is that Bridget? Was that you, Bridget?
No, Amy.
Oh, Amy, okay. Voting to approve, Michael Ahrens,
Yes.
Bridget Davila,
Yes.
Amy O'Hare,
Yes.
Maurice Rivers,
Yes.
Mark Tang,
Yes.
Peter Tam,
Yes.
and I vote yes. So that is unanimous. Okay, Lee, if you could, is it possible for you, or who's controlling the screen? I've lost track. Is it possible to put the resolution up on the screen, or is that available?
Sure. Do we want to see if the public has any comments on the minutes before we
Yes,
move?
we do. Thank you very much. Public comment on the minutes now that we've approved it. Seeing none, give it. You have to unmute before you. Is anybody waving?
One
Waving
hand,
your hand?
Russell. Russell, if you would like to speak on the minutes. All right, Russell, would you like to speak on the minutes? I'm not sure he's there, so we'll move on and see if he wants to
Okay.
speak later. Thanks.
Seeing no public comment, we'll move on. Okay, next item is we have a resolution. We've never done a resolution in this CAC before. It's pretty common in other CACs. I've written a resolution to, let's see if I can find it. One moment, please.
John, I've got it up on the screen. It's
Okay,
on
thank you.
2 slides. So this is the first half.
Yeah, so it's basically a resolution. It has a bunch of whereases explaining why, and it all boils down to I would like to have the city fund the redesign and remodeling, I guess, of the Ocean Avenue between Frida Kahlo and BART, actually to Mission Street, but more, I'd like to concentrate on BART, at least at this point. I have some notes. So the Ocean Avenue Corridor Project from 2015 is a plan to make Ocean Avenue safer, more livable street. The project has been completed between Manor and Frida Kahlo, because it's got the blue street furniture and the new street lights and the wider sidewalks and the bulb outs, the sidewalks that are wider at the corner. It's got better lighting, street furniture, landscaping, better street crossings. It's been done between Manor and Frida Kahlo, but between Frida Kahlo and BART is the part I'm concerned about the most right now, because it's not, it's a pretty much of a nightmare to walk down that street. So the completed part of the street has resulted in a better street life with less crime, more foot traffic and eyes on the street, and lots of economic benefits for merchants. Whereas there used to be nobody on the street, there's a lot of people now. And the Whole Food has anchored the neighborhood, and Unity Plaza has become a focal point. And there are a lot more people on the street now, and it's a much more pleasant place to be. It's been completed up to there, but SFMTA is working on a plan to reconfigure the intersection at Frida and Ocean. They'll be coming to the community in the fall to showcase what they've come up with and ask for input. But the route from BART to CCSF and the reservoir is sketchy for pedestrians, transit riders, cyclists, and it's dangerous and unpleasant. Because of the many injuries and even deaths over the years, the street's been designated a Vision Zero high injury corridor. Sidewalks are dark and narrow at night, and bike lanes are a patchwork, and they're unprotected from traffic. And the traffic is fast, especially going downhill towards the freeway. In rush hour, it can take 10 minutes or more to take the K from San Jose to Frida. CCSF is going to build a big student center that faces oceans and will move its retaining wall to allow more space on the north side of Ocean Avenue. And in doing so, they're sort of going to begin the process over many years of turning the focus of the campus towards Ocean Avenue and not as much towards Frida Kahlo. The Ocean Avenue corridor plans to add wider sidewalks with pedestrian level lighting, street trees, safer crossing, protected bike lanes, and all without removing any car capacity. With the addition of the Balboa Reservoir and all the new housing and retail on Ocean, and more to come, we need to fix this corridor, not just to make it safer, but also to give the neighborhood a better connection to BART and to the neighborhoods to the east. The stretch of street needs to have a better sense of place as well. It's just the ugly place. It was just a connection between nowhere and nowhere, and we need to give it a sense of place. By providing a street that can accommodate efficient transit, safe walking and biking, we can provide choice for students and neighborhood residents to travel without cars. That's how because I, as a bicyclist myself, I am reticent to ride a bike down Ocean Avenue. Streetcar tracks, come and go bike lanes, freeway entrances, it needs work. So by making it safer for bicyclists, it'll become a choice for more people. And it'll also be a choice for more people who would prefer to walk or to transit. And that's how we reduce the need for parking and at the same time deal proactively with congestion. It's also how we contribute to a better neighborhood character, giving our streets a sense of place where people fit into the landscape rather than an inhospitable, dangerous, and noisy traffic jam. So that's my presentation on that. Short and sweet. If I guess look to the committee for some input discussion. I will, since we're on Zoom, I'm going to go call roll for this. So Michael, would you like to say anything first?
Yes, I said last time that I really would support anything that helps Ocean Avenue with or without the development. I had questions, as some other member of the CAC mentioned, as to whether we even have the jurisdiction to do that. I think it's marginal. I read the bylaws and I read also the ordinance, and I think we certainly would be listened to if we pass this resolution. So that's not my problem. I don't have a problem considering this. My concern is I don't know enough about all of this, and I don't know if these are all true. I would have appreciated a presentation by whoever the proponent is in a little more detail, because at the end we say the Board of Supervisors fully fund and implement. I mean, right now in this time of COVID-19 with a possible $2 billion loss to the city, I'm not sure that we can say that unless we know the numbers. So I would be more comfortable having a better presentation. I went back online even and tried to figure out what this is all about. And I think the last thing I could find was 2015 or 2016 about this situation. So I'm inclined to want more information before I would certainly support all of those recitals.
John?
But I'm certainly not against eventually doing this, but maybe at the next meeting when we get more of a presentation about all of these recitals and about what the fund is, how much it costs. I have no idea what fully fund and implement means. So that's the only thing I have.
Okay.
John, I wanted to let you know that Jen Lowe is on and she would like to speak if possible.
Okay, related to this item, or should we just take a break from it?
No, on this item.
Okay, go ahead, Jen.
I hope you can hear me all right. Thank you so much for holding this meeting tonight. I just want to emphasize that, Supervisor Yee certainly supports pedestrian and street safety improvements to Ocean Avenue. I do want to provide clarification that the Board of Supervisors does not control a lot of the budget that this would pertain to. And so I would like to request that if this resolution does move forward, that it would be to urge also the SFMTA Board of Directors. Potentially, the Board of Supervisors does sit as a county transportation authority, so that's another option, as well as perhaps even BART and their board to see if they can also invest in these improvements, given that the ridership is coming from BART. But I just wanted to provide that clarification that the board does not actually oversee SFMTA's budget and is very limited in what we can help support in the general fund.
Okay, thank you. I didn't realize that we could actually have any purview over those agencies. I thought we only advised the Board of Supervisors and the Planning Department, but that's great. That's a friendly amendment that can be added. Let's see, Bridget Davila, did you have anything you wanted to add? Are you done, Jen? Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Jen, by the way, is a Supervisor Yee's aide, so she's speaking from Supervisor Yee's office. Bridget?
I agree with what Jen Lowe just said, and I also wanted to say that I think this is aspirational. So regardless of what happens with COVID-19, I think this is what we have to put forward so people know what we want. I would only add one thing, and hopefully this will be friendly to your resolution also, and that's to work with City College to develop it. You mentioned City College twice in here, and but you don't talk about working with City College.
Okay.
City College has already bought into the idea of opening up that area and taking down the retaining wall. So I think it makes sense. And I also was going to mention, you know, Caltrans is key part of this. And I don't know who is responsible for the bridge. Does anybody from planning know? I thought it was SFMTA, that hideous, dangerous bridge.
Yeah, it's included in the plan to remove that bridge and make it a safe crossing.
Yeah, but as I recall, it was a different entity that had control of that bridge, and maybe someone else.
This is Sung-Yan from planning. And my understanding is it's under Public Works jurisdiction.
Oh.
But if there's we probably can work with them if there's need for it. Yeah.
If there's need. Oh
if
my
there's
God.
other city agencies approval, then they will work with us.
That thing really needs to be, something needs to be done with it. Students still need to get across, or people need to get across some way safely, but that is not a very safe bridge.
No, it's dark and dirty and
Yeah.
lonely.
Right.
Anything else, Bridget?
So that's it. I would just ask that you work in concert with City College and,
Okay.
and add that to the language of the resolution.
Okay, Amy O'Hare?
Yes, I support it in spirit, but I would appreciate it, or would have appreciated it, if you had actually submitted it to the other CAC members as something that we would weigh in on. There's a lot of confusion, to my mind, to some of the clauses. I don't know what the Geneva Harney bus rapid transit line is, and there are other just, you know, language problems with it, and I just think it's just not ready.
It was submitted to, it was posted
Yeah, but
at the last meeting.
I'd like you to talk to us,
Yes.
the members of the CAC,
Right.
directly.
I see.
Okay. Yeah.
And okay, and that would be outside of the meeting, because
One-on-one, yeah, you know, one-on-one, you have a right to do that. That doesn't violate the Brown statute.
okay. Maurice River, would you like to say something else? Amy? I don't want to cut you off. Okay,
No.
Maurice Rivers.
I have nothing to add on this at the moment.
Okay, Mark Tang.
Yes, so seeing as I work at the air district that provides funding for SFCTA, I'm going to abstain from this resolution.
Okay. Peter Tam.
I can back this. I think, you know, the numbers have to be presented well to everyone on the CAC, but we've talked about this numerous times. We've had several presentations from SFMTA at the Ocean Avenue Association. So I'm a little bit more familiar with what we're trying to achieve with the Vision Zero, especially at the intersection of Ocean, Frida Kahlo, and Geneva. I do want to emphasize that, you know, while working with CCSF to implement this, at the same time focus a lot of it on better lighting, better traffic controls, and better lane, I guess, lane designations in that area.
Okay, thank you. All right. I just want to respond. I'm happy with incorporating all of these friendly amendments to include the CTA, the SFMTA, BART, work with San Francisco City College, and I have a note about the Caltrans bridge, but I think that's doesn't really enter into it, at least not on this level. And I wanted to respond to Michael. I think this is, as Bridget said, this is an aspiration. These resolutions from CACs, they're not legislation, so we don't really have to identify where the money is going to come from. We're just aspiring to get that money somewhere and have it used for this project, to have it implemented. So it's really basically just the CAC coming together with one voice and saying, we need to fix Ocean Avenue, and we want it funded, and we want it to work before the project is done. So anyway, I guess I should ask for a second. I've put this on the table, and I'll ask for a second. If anybody wants to second.
Second, I'll second it.
Okay.
This is Bridget.
Public comment.
And let's do public comment, and then my point of order question now is, should this be tabled until next meeting, or should we vote on it today? Any opinions on that?
I would prefer that you table it and get it into shape before putting it forward for approval from the CAC members.
Okay, point taken. Let's get some public comment though.
Gonna call on the first person. It's a phone number. I'm gonna unmute you. 415-334. That person can
Hello?
go ahead and speak.
Somebody's speaking.
Well, my name is Hedda Thieme. I find that taking down the wall should be the last request, because there are other items which are more important and perhaps less expensive. Before you are tackling the wall, have a geological survey done pertaining to a soil study. You will get a mudslide galore, and that will be very costly. So put that on the back burner. What is very important is the traffic exiting the 280 freeway into Ocean Avenue. And they come with full force from the freeway, and you cannot cross on the sidewalk without endangering your life. There should be a traffic light of some kind. And also, we should spend a lot of money on the on the opening of the BART entrance, where the streetcar and the BART entrance are. And there are some unbelievable stairs and a lot of waste of space. Both items should be redone, and preferably even an escalator going down to the platform. Thank you.
Thank you, Hedda.
Next, we have Chris Hansen, and just to remind everybody, you have 2 minutes for public comment, and John, I will be timing you. Thank you.
Hi, I'm not sure if you've got me on the phone or on the computer. I guess I'm on the phone. So thank you for authoring a resolution. Please continue to do this. You are our voice, and you have the ability to create resolutions to officially state a position that the community may not have stated elsewhere. It would be good that you all as a group become informed to the level of experts on the resolutions that you create. And as far as jurisdiction, I'd like to share an example of a resolution that happened, that the Board of Supervisors unanimously passed during the state takeover of City College the supervisors didn't have jurisdiction over the state process or the accreditation process, but because the resolution existed, it was able to be added to many of the discussions that followed, and it did have weight. And resolutions you create can be used in a similar way to help progress items through some of what is long processes. So thank you, and I would like to know more about this resolution and the topic, but it looks like a very worthy thing to keep moving forward.
Thank you.
I'm done.
Next speaker.
The next speaker is Jennifer H.
Hi, this is Jennifer. So this resolution is really great. It's going in the right direction. I would request that it must be approved and funded, that these projects must be approved and funded prior to beginning the Balboa Reservoir project construction. And the reason is the success of the Balboa Reservoir project and City College are dependent on these fixes, and we've been asking for this for more than 5 years, and these ideas have been around for a lot longer than that, and no one has done anything, so I have no faith that it will happen unless we use it as leverage. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Any more public comment?
Next, we have F.
That may have been me. I just asked that the committee take this opportunity to use your leverage, use your opportunity to do the best thing that you can do to improve the community, connect this new development to BART, make this corridor the best that you can do. The best that it can be. This is the opportunity that we have here, and don't waste. Make this resolution pitch perfect. Spend that time, but please execute on this.
Thank you. And that was Mike F.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And now we have a phone number, 717-5986.
I think you're on the air.
Can you, are you there? Are you able to speak?
Give it a minute. I see it. I see that phone number on my screen.
Yeah, and I unmuted it. It's 717-5986.
Well,
okay.
Wasn't that Chris Hansen? I thought she commented already.
Oh, maybe it was.
Okay.
Okay. Well, let's go to the next speaker and hope that they come back if there's a problem.
That is those are all the speakers, John.
Oh, did we get Theo yet?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay, so we will schedule that to be, I will bring this individually to each member and we will discuss it further, and we will resubmit this next week, our next meeting, and we'll get a quick vote on it.
Just let me comment, John, I'm ready to support this now with your comments and Jen Lowe's and Bridget's and Jennifer's comments. So let's hope we can get a resolution that we're all happy with, because I think this is for the betterment of the community with or without the development.
Thank you. Okay, good. I think I would like to, even though we could probably pass it tonight, I think we should wait, and Amy and I can work on it a little bit. I know that I did notice a few typos after it was posted, and I was afraid to correct them because it had already been posted. So we can work on it a little bit and tighten it up a bit. And I can include the friendly amendments that we picked up tonight. Okay, next on the agenda, the upcoming schedule and approval process. Let me just find that on my script here.
John, while you're doing that, I just want to make a quick announcement about the chat versus the public comment. So the public comment will be, as we've been doing it now with folks raising their hand and doing that, that will be the official public comment, just to note the difference between if people type into the chat box, it is recorded here, but it is the official public comment is the verbal comment that you're hearing.
So does everybody know how to raise your hand? You go to the participants tab at the bottom, you click there and raise your hand, and then you'll be called on when public comment begins. Okay, we have a discussion item on the approval schedule, the upcoming schedule and approval process, item number 4. Is there a member of the staff that was, I think Peter, was it, who's going to speak?
No, John. Hey, it's Lee. I'm going to present this item.
Okay.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you. I just wanted to start with a graphic that everyone should be familiar with. We have shown this a number of times throughout our process. I'll be doing a brief few slides tonight about the big box all the way to the right side of the screen with the arrow. As you can see, we are nearing the end of our overall project timeline to approve the project. We're approaching EIR certification and a series of project approval hearings. This milestone will be the divide between the project being approved and then being able to move into the implementation and construction phase. So let's see. This slide shows that upcoming schedule of city approval hearings. I will, on the next couple of slides, go into the key actions that each of these bodies will be taking, but this is just a broad overview of the schedule itself. As has already been announced, we have a Planning Commission hearing on May 28th. The primary item top of this slide is EIR certification. The response to comments from the draft EIR has been published. It's on the Planning Department's website and has been distributed to folks upon request. The certification of the EIR is the first action that must be taken in order for the Planning Commission and the other city bodies to take subsequent action on the project itself. So that will be considered first by the Planning Commission, and then in the same hearing, there will be other actions. Later in June, we will be attending the SFMTA board and the SFPUC commission. And then in late summer, the schedule is has to be determined as we move through the process. But anticipated late summer, we will be heading to the Board of Supervisors. The project will likely be heard in 2 of their committees, Land Use and Transportation and Budget and Finance. We plan to continue our BRCAC meetings throughout this process. And we've done an informational with the City College Trustees Facilities Committee. And so we will likely be attending the City College Trustees Committees or full trustees throughout the process as well. The key project documents and regulations that these approvals will entitle, we have gone over this slide before, and you've had a deep dive into a number of these documents. Later on tonight, we will talk specifically about the development agreement. So we have the development agreement, which is the contract between the developer and the city that grants the development rights to the development team and requires the provision of community benefits. The special use district is the new planning code section that specifically pertains to the overarching land use and design controls for the site. And it refers to the design standards and guidelines document, which this committee has spent quite a lot of time looking at. And this is the very specific standard and guidelines related to the physical design and the land use for the project. Contained within the development agreement is the master infrastructure plan. This is a more technical document that outlines the conceptual approach to all of the critical site infrastructure. As you can imagine, as the site is currently a surface parking lot, in order to serve a new residential community, there will need to be installation of brand new water, sewer, electricity, streets, and all the utilities that are required for residential use. So the master infrastructure plan is a collaboration of all of the city's infrastructure departments to ensure that the site is being laid out correctly and that the site can be served by all of the services that it will need. So a summary of the approval actions that each of these bodies will be taking. The Planning Commission, number 1, will certify the final EIR. They will adopt CEQA findings and general plan findings. They will approve the design standards and guidelines document. And they will recommend to the Board of Supervisors general plan amendments, the special use district, and the development agreement. All 3 of those items are ordinances, and the Board of Supervisors has the responsibility for considering legislation like ordinances. So the Planning Commission will be referring them and recommending them to the board. The SFMTA board will consent to the DA. Obviously, transportation is a critical piece, and a number of the items within the development agreement are under the purview of the SFMTA. So they will consent to particularly those portions, the transportation plan, the TDM, and they will also adopt CEQA findings that pertain to those actions. The SFPUC Commission has a slightly different set of actions. As the current owner of the property, they will be approving and recommending to the Board of Supervisors, which will have ultimate authority to approve, the purchase and sale agreement, which is the real estate contract that will convey the property to the development team, an open space license for the retained fee area. As everyone's aware, the SFPUC open space on the southern portion of the site will not be sold. It will be retained in ownership by the SFMTA, and that is due to the high capacity water transmission lines that exist underneath. It will allow the SFPUC full access and ability to maintain those critical pieces of infrastructure. They will be granting the development team a license to be able to improve that space as the open space that you have seen in the DSG and elsewhere, and operate it as an open space part of the project. The SFPUC will also be considering an amended access and easement agreement with City College that pertains to the Lee Avenue and North Road access ways to ensure that the master plan and the new street system as designed and shown in the DSG is able to be effectuated. The SFPUC Commission will also consent to the DA, mostly pertaining to the master infrastructure plan. So that would be SFPUC's role as our city's major utility provider. So they'll be consenting to the utility portions of that document and also adopting CEQA findings. And then finally, the Board of Supervisors will be the final authority to approve the legislation, the special use district, the general plan amendment, the development agreement, and also will be approving by resolution the SFPUC items listed above. So that's the conclusion of the upcoming schedule. I want to also just mention before we go to public comment, all of these bodies have their own public comment periods, and all of these bodies will be posting agendas in advance, as well as we will be posting all of the materials in advance. And so, as was mentioned by John at the beginning of the meeting, the Planning Commission documents are already posted both to the Planning Commission page on the Planning Department's website, but also we have posted them on the CAC website. And the agenda will be posted when it is published by the Commission Secretary. So you can expect the same to occur for the subsequent commissions and boards. Thank you. I'll turn it over to you, John, for
Thank
CAC.
you, Lee. Okay, let's quickly go through, well, not quickly, as long as it takes, let's go through the roll call of the committee for comments. Michael Ahrens?
Yes, I'd like the committee members to know and the public to know that today I gave to Lee a memorandum regarding the development agreement. That memorandum includes comments on the development agreement, and also it has some comments on the schedule that's just discussed. I'll treat this as more informational. I have no problem with what was discussed, but I will reserve comments on the schedule for my next more important discussion on the draft development agreement. But I will tell you the gist of my comment will be when on the schedule when it comes to the development agreement, that this development agreement is not ready to be approved. There is no memorandum of understanding between the city and City College. And 2 years ago, it was stated by Ken Rich that he would treat this with the utmost priority. And this just hasn't happened. And a lot of the numbers, as I said in the emails that I sent, or the comment I made at the last meeting, the numbers are just wrong. And they're taken out of context. And thank you for finally publishing the TDM. But rather than go over it now, I'll reserve my comments to later. But I think these, all of these meetings, the Planning Commission, everything else you've scheduled, should not proceed until we have the MOU, which covers not only parking but other matters between City College and the City of San Francisco, and that's consistent with basically the comments of President Yi 2 years ago. And by the way, there is one error in my memo. I said at that meeting where President Yi made that comment 2 years ago when he was Supervisor Yi, I said it was in 2019. It was March 15th, 2018. So I'll reserve my comments to later, John.
Okay, thank you, Michael. Bridget Davila? Are you muted?
Luckily, we're in agreement here. So I think that I was going to say the same thing. I don't think that the draft DA is in any shape yet, but we'll see where we go from here. But we do need a memorandum of understanding. City College has issued several resolutions regarding what we believe we need for the Balboa Reservoir, and that has been discussed very loosely. And I see even on here, it's still, the words are very loose. So I would like to tighten that up, since we are going to be the neighbor right across the way, and we do need to cooperate. So how about some cooperation?
Thank you. Amy O'Hare?
I have no comment, though I support, certainly in principle, the memorandum of understanding that Mike mentioned. I was unaware that this is a unfulfilled
Yep, it has.
need.
Maurice?
Well, I completely agree with what Michael was saying. And I know the Board of Supervisors is voting to extend the CAC until July 2021. And on that note, if it happens, and I'm pretty sure it will, I think we as a CAC really need to take our position seriously as far as holding the developer to all the guidelines and make sure that they don't overextend themselves or try to ignore what's already been put down, because we're the mouthpieces of District 7 and District 11 residents and business owners, and they're counting on us to get this right. We only have one shot. So we've got to take this seriously. We've got to get the parking issue down, and only then can we move ahead with this.
Okay, thank you, Maurice. Mark Tang?
Yeah, I think for me, I'm just a little buried in a lot of the procedural stuff that's happening here. So it's difficult for me, at least I'm on the website, to find links to some of these documents. And then also, if some of these other commissions and boards that are going to be looking at this project, if we could get updates on some of the board documents that they'll be seeing too, as CACs, we can kind of get an understanding of the whole entire picture and provide public comment at those avenues. But other than that, I don't really have any other comments.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Peter, Tim?
I'll echo what Maurice said. We are the voice of all of the districts surrounding this project right here. And it's important, at least from the business owner standpoint on Ocean Avenue as well, that this project is done right, because if it hurts all of the local businesses on Ocean Avenue, it'll end up hurting the neighborhood as a whole.
Okay, and my turn. I agree with everything everyone has said. I think that we're basically just looking at the schedule of how it's going to work. But as far as the MOU is concerned, I watched the last Board of Trustees meeting after the fact, a few days later, and I was, it's just been really hard to communicate both on their side and on our side to get an MOU finished. Charmaine Curtis, the woman who is the liaison between City College and the project, went away for a few months, and now she's back. There's the chancellor was fired. James Son, the vice chancellor, I believe he was, is not there anymore. So it's really hard to make connections and get this, but I really do agree that we need to get an MOU nailed down. And there's some discussion about the TDM, City Colleges, the Fair and Pierce TDM, about various numbers regarding parking, how much parking is needed by City College. We need to work on that, figure it out exactly what it is that's needed, and which parking is going to be built or not built on City College land, and if the PAC is really going to be built and when that is going to happen, and how much parking they're going to need. All of that has to be figured out, and we do need an actual formal agreement, and I think that that's something that has to happen in the next few months. So public comment. Let's open it up for public comment.
I have my hand up, John.
Who does? Oh, I'm sorry, Bridget.
Yeah. So I just wanted to add something else. A few people said they couldn't find the documents online. I've been looking here too. I was looking for the EIR because I thought Lee said that it was on here.
Lee, she posted it about 2 hours ago. It's
Oh,
been posted.
well, I'm looking and I don't see it.
I've been asking for a
maybe-
couple of weeks, and it is online now on the CAC website. Anybody who's on the line that wants to look at it, Lee posted it about 3 hours or 4 hours ago.
I'm just going to jump in, and I want to clarify where everything is so that Bridget's.
Oh, I see.
Bridget, your question about the EIR, that is has been published a couple weeks ago. And
Yeah,
that,
it's on can be viewed here.
Yep, exactly.
So it doesn't say EIR. It's not, that's
Well, the
part's not
identity,
linked.
yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, all of the documents are linked to from that main page of the CAC website. If there are, and then a new tab has been added called Plan Adoption. And that is where you can find all of those 4 key documents that I went over in the presentation that are put forth as part of the Planning Commission packet. So all of the documents are up there on the website. I'm also very happy to send the CAC an email with specific links. If you wanted to just forward that. I can't attach the actual documents because they're just usually far too large in size.
Okay.
Does that answer your question, Bridget?
Yeah, I found it. It's just, I guess the organization, I couldn't find it with this structure here because I thought it would be with the DA ordinance and the SUD ordinance, but I found it over here where it says can be viewed here.
Yeah, always start with the Balboa Reservoir CAC website, and usually you can find everything, including that resolution.
Well, I
we
couldn't.
talked
That's
about.
why I raised the question.
Oh, okay. All right. Do we have any public comment on this item?
Yes, we have Chris Hansen.
Hi, thank you. Under the process that the SFPUC process approvals, does the official declaration of surplus property, is that a part of the purchase and sale agreement portion of the SFPUC's approval process? As far as I know, as we've asked throughout this these last few years, that actual process had not been completed. I would like to just echo that there does need to be a full airing of all the issues regarding City College. These need to happen in public. To answer John, the stakeholder, committee, the facilities committee, has consistently met through the entire time that this CAC has been operating, and most of those stakeholder members have been consistent throughout that time. In fact, I think Stephen Brown may actually be attending this meeting, and he's the committee chair, and I suggest perhaps you reach out to him. And one more thing, the developer agreement as presented has a lot of blank pages. There should not be anything approved, any documents approved that contain blank areas that have been not completely fleshed out in print. They just shouldn't be approved. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Next, is there a next?
We have, I think it's Steve Martin Pinto.
Can you hear me?
We hear you.
Okay. I just want to say really quickly how crucial it is we get this parking and traffic situation nailed down. I know it seems tedious to a lot of people, but if you want to get people on board with this project, you really got to give the neighbors and the City College students a good sense of security that it'll be handled to the best of everybody's benefit. And, you know, as we all know, that this is going to create some traffic, which is unavoidable, but we got to do our best to manage it the right way and have a solution that everyone can feel good about. That's all I got.
Thank you, Stephen.
We have Theodore Randolph.
All right. So I'm Theodore Randolph, resident of the Excelsior, and I think a memorandum of understanding and trying to prioritize traffic improvements, they are important, but they are not crucial, especially if like the bias here is to have no action and preserve the parking, and we got into this state by ad hoc, reckless adoption of cars and driving. So, so I think another ad hoc process is not necessarily bad if the incentives are aligned correctly. And in this case, the developers are intending to stay here for the long term. This is mostly rental housing. So I think their incentives are aligned toward making the traffic work better. So, the improvements are, so a memorandum of understanding, that would be good to have, but if for reasons the city college and the developer are not able to make one, I don't think it's absolutely necessary. Right, thank you.
Okay.
That's it for public comment.
Okay, that's it. Got a text message that someone has reached out to Mr. Brown over at the facility, so I guess there will be a meeting soon.
So John, maybe before you go to the CAC one more time, I can respond to a couple of the
Sure, please do.
topics that came up. First, just a simple answer. There was a question about whether the SFPUC would be making surplus findings action. And I'm really sorry.
It adds character.
Almost bedtime, I think.
Everybody knows it.
Yeah. Sorry about that. Yes, the SFPUC will be making a surplus lands finding when they take the action at the commission. The other topic that has been discussed a lot is an MOU with City College. That is something that we had been working on for about 2 years. It's something that we have distributed and had been working with the prior administration on. We have a final draft. It represents everything that you see in the development agreement, but just was unable to be moved forward given a lot of the turnover and just other matters that the college was taking up. So it's certainly something that we have all been working towards. That said, we have incorporated all of the terms of that into the development agreement. So from our perspective, we will be requiring the developer to satisfy all of those areas of collaboration with City College regardless. And so I just wanted to make that comment, but we can move on and I can go through the DA presentation and then we can have a much more full discussion of that.
Okay. I got a message here from Harry Bernstein that he was trying to make a comment, but Harry, did you raise your hand?
My hand is raised.
Oh, okay, we can hear you. Why don't you go ahead and make your comment? I'm sorry you got passed over.
Okay. So
A little louder though, if you can do that.
yes, a couple things. So on the one issue is that there's the repositioning of North Street or Drive, and the way it's shown on, if you look at the 415-page PDF, I think it's on, there's several diagrams, for instance, page 174 and 191. It shows where it crosses the Reservoir site and then goes into City College just north of where the steam building would be and connects just across from Cloud Circle. So I don't know exactly the distance there. The only, Chris Hansen mentioned that she had heard one comment about why this was done, and that comment was that it looked nice. There's got to be more to it. But the other thing that concerns me is that the Board of Trustees has said they do not want a road across their property, and the PGC Facilities Committee, again, you should talk to Stephen Brown, several times has outright rejected that. So I don't know why that road still keeps coming up, and there are apparently quite a few problems. You can't just change the the sizes of the easement are an issue. Now there's a comment also about the parking has to be resolved in a way that's equitable and everything. I'm just wondering, how is that determined? Will there be a time that a community majority or someone at this end of things rather than City Hall? Because the Planning Commission did not seem to see very much, just a little bit of a problem in this area. And we can't trust downtown to really rely on their judgment.
Okay, thank you, Harry. Your time is up, but maybe, is it possible to get Joe Kirchhoffer to answer that question?
Sure, yeah, I can. Yeah, I mean, there's a couple there. So the North Drive question, there's a lot of history there. I mean, we sat down with the college's FMP design team a couple of years ago, and at one point everybody had agreed that yes, let's.
I'm sorry, Joe. Joe, could you just sort of state who you are exactly?
Sorry, thank you.
Old team, though.
So I'm Joe Kirchhoffer with Avalon Bay with the development team. Yes, we sat down with the old team. We're happy to sit down with the new team or whoever else it is. That is the college's land. We've proposed to move the street. We have included both keeping, it's what we call North Drive, the connection between Lee Avenue and Frida Kahlo Way. We've included both scenarios, both keeping it where it is and moving it slightly to the south in all of the approval documents. We think it is better moving to the south. We think it improves the traffic flow on Frida Kahlo. We think it makes a much safer pedestrian crossing across Frida Kahlo. So there are a lot of real reasons. It's not just because it looks nice. That said, it's the college's land, and we are, obviously deferring to the college. If the college and the master plan team at the college agrees, which at one point they did, we're happy to move forward that way. If not, and everyone decides to keep it where it is, we're happy to move forward with that configuration. And other than the timing, that at some point we're going to need a decision, it's frankly up to the college to determine and give us some guidance on how that orientation should work.
Okay, thank you, Joe. we're diverging a little bit from the actual topic, but it's good that these are all being aired. So maybe we'll just go quickly through the, thank you, Joe. Maybe we'll go
Did
through
you
the.
see my blue hand on this?
No, I didn't, but I'm going to call roll for comments right now.
We have one more public comment, John. I think
Oh, let's do that. Sorry.
we're struggling with the how to raise a hand. So yeah, just to remind folks, it's not, we're not looking at all the videos, so don't raise your hand in the video, but there's a button to push to, it's a raise hand feature here. And if you see Bridget's screen, you see a little blue hand up in the corner. So that's kind of what it should look like for you when you raise your hand. So I think Tomasita would like to speak.
Thank you. Can you hear me? I can't, what I have on my screen, it says public comment. It's what I.
Yes, that's correct. We can hear you, Tomasita. Go ahead.
I don't see where it says the list of people and all that. I don't have that. I just have the public comment page in front of me.
Okay.
Anyway, is that regarding the memorandum of understanding, at the most recent meeting that we attended, which we don't even remember what it was. I think it was maybe some facilities meeting. It was clear, Charmaine spoke, and she is the only one who apparently knows what's in the memorandum of understanding. None of the trustees know what's in the memorandum of understanding, and they, so she's been off for a year, and then she said, "Well, I'm the one who's been, dealing with the city and the developers, and you've just said that it's." It's all complete, it's in draft form, but it hasn't signed. However, the trustees haven't even seen it. They don't even know what's in it. And as far as we're concerned, this is very, very wrong, because the trustees should have been directing Charmaine what they wanted in that memorandum, and they should have been informed all along. And so how can you be saying, well, we have incorporated the memorandum of understanding into the development agreement when the trustees don't even know what's in it? So the first step first, that they should be, that draft memorandum of understanding should be presented to the Board of Trustees immediately, and they should be given the opportunity as the holders of the trust of the city, as the trustees, to comment on that and to have input into that before, you can't just have one woman representing, everybody and the people who are officially voted into by the population haven't even seen what's in it. So that needs to be taken care of first.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody else? Jennifer, you're just making a comment on the list. Okay, I think we're done with anybody else for public comment. Anyone want to raise their hand? You hit the participants tab at the bottom and raise your hand there. Okay.
No, but I do have my hand up. So
okay, I'm going to go through the roll call alphabetical order, and everybody will get a chance. Unless you want to, okay, you want to go first, Bridget. I'm sorry, you might have some.
Well, I'm just thinking that what we used to do before was we'd mix it up and start. You don't have to go alphabetical every time.
Okay, well, let's do that. Let's try it. Okay, I'm just trying to, because we're online here.
Poor Michael, he's always got to hit it first.
I'll change my name.
Yeah. So anyway, I just wanted to mention two things that were raised. One is we have not made a decision about where the road should be. So I'm speaking for City College here. We have not made it. We're not necessarily opposed, but we do want to look at it in connection to where everything is located. And we have not made a decision on it. That's all there is. It's we haven't made a decision. As for Charmaine, she just recently came back, very recently. She was not here for almost a year. It was last June when she was last here. So she's not making any decisions on this. We do have a new team in place, and that's something that we're just all going to have to deal with right now. So we do have a new team in place, and they're looking at what has been agreed to before. I just wanted to clarify that, speaking on behalf of City College.
Thank you. That's clarifying. Anybody else from the committee would like to make a comment?
Yeah, this is Maurice. I just wanted to say that I got a text from a Westwood Park resident just now who asked for anonymity. And the neighbor wanted to know, is there a formal or informal process to go through to challenge the number of units, which is currently 1,100?
I do not know the answer to that. We will come back with an answer to that at some point.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other comments from the committee? Okay. I guess at this point we will go to item 5 then. Development agreement, community benefits, another discussion item. And I'll be turning that over to Lee for discussion or presentation.
Thank you, John. Okay. Let me queue up my slides here. Okay. I know there's going to be a lot of questions and comment on the DA. It covers a lot of topics. I put together these slides and I admit they're fairly wordy, so I won't necessarily read everything from all of them. But I wanted to make sure that the content was provided. And so I'll start with this. This is really a summary, and this is a slide we've shown in the past, but this is really a summary of the key community benefits that the project is providing. Of the 1,100 new housing units, 50% will be affordable, 4 acres of open space, collaboration with City College on educator housing and public parking, a childcare center and community room, transportation demand management and sustainability plans, and workforce requirements. Again, the development agreement is a contract between the developer and the city that grants development rights to the development team and requires the provision of community benefits. The key word I want to reinforce is requires. The content on the following slides that represents what's in the DA is a requirement and a condition to the developer being able to proceed with constructing the project. The key community benefits I'll describe are these 5 bullets below. In general, though, also throughout the documents, I just wanted to note that there is public outreach that will be required. As with Supervisor or President Yee's legislation, the BRCAC will continue through 2021. There are also going to be required public meetings prior to the start of each development phase and required public meetings to discuss the park design and operation. That's just a highlight. There's more detail in terms of public outreach. So affordable housing, 50% of the housing, or 550 units, will be affordable. The affordability will be guaranteed with an affordable deed restriction for the life of the project. The affordable units will be provided in 4 100% affordable multifamily buildings. So 4 of the buildings on the project will be affordable buildings. The affordable plan includes up to 20 homeownership units for low to moderate income families. Of those buildings, one of them with approximately 150 units is planned to be an educator building. And that building will have a first preference for City College employees. That includes faculty and staff. The affordable units will be provided in ranges from low income to moderate, so between 30% and up to 120% of AMI. That's area median income. The developer will be responsible for the pre-development, planning, permitting, construction, and management of all the affordable housing units. And as a reminder, the affordable housing team in this master development is led by Bridge Housing, but also includes Mission Housing and Habitat for Humanity. The developer will be responsible for contributing gap financing for 66% of the affordable units, which will be 33% of the total units in the project. Commensurately, the city will contribute financing for up to 34% of the affordable units or 17% of the total units in the project, and that's consistent with the 50% overall goal. The developer will also provide targeted marketing for affordable units to seniors, early childcare educators, and to neighborhood residents. This is a layout so that you can kind of picture what it will look like. The affordable buildings will be E, F, A, and B. The educator building is planned to be building F. And the detail on this slide shows more about what the AMIs are intended to be and how many units in each building. The Affordable Housing Program exhibit to the development agreement goes into the details about how this program is going to be built out and the terms under which the city will be contributing that funding. An open space network will be constructed of approximately 4 acres, including all of the open spaces you've reviewed as part of the Design Standards and Guidelines document: Reservoir Park, Gateway Landscape, the Paseos, dog park areas within those, and the SFPUC open space. The developer or a future homeowners association will be responsible for funding, maintenance, and operation of these open spaces. They will be publicly accessible and will operate per city regulations. There will be new public rights of way that will be constructed. Those will be dedicated to the city, along with the underlying utilities, so that they will become public rights of way like every other road in the city. A community room will be provided and will be available for public use. It will be approximately 1,000 square feet, and it is required to be in a building facing Reservoir Park. It's currently planned for building E. You can see that on the diagram. And as I mentioned prior, particularly Reservoir Park, but all of the open spaces are still subject to being fully designed, and that design will be done in concert with the public. Transportation, we've previously discussed the Transportation Demand Management Plan. That plan is attached to the development agreement and again is a requirement that the developer implement that plan as they build their project. The developer will be paying approximately $10 million in transportation sustainability fees to the SFMTA that contributes to the citywide transit system. And I'm just going to skip over public parking for a second and highlight the very last bullet point on this slide. The SFMTA, as part of this development agreement, will be designating a single point of contact for the developer and the community, so that there's somebody specific that will be responsible for updates or hearing public comment, talking about what's happening in the area and specifically in the project. Public parking, I understand that this is a topic that we will likely want to discuss during Q&A. So I wanted to describe what is in the transportation exhibit of the development agreement. Interim public spaces will be provided during construction, and up to 450 permanent public parking spaces will be provided in garages beneath or within the residential buildings. Pricing will be set at market rate with a fee structure that will not induce demand. The developer may negotiate discounted rates for priority city college populations. The final number of public parking spaces will be determined via a parking garage analysis process that will examine then current data. We have heard from many of you regarding the assumption of 220 spaces that we've provided in prior presentations, which is based on the current set of data and analyses we have today. That amount is not codified in the DA. Instead, the approvals allow for up to 450 public parking spaces, again, with the final number to be determined via a process with the SFMTA that will occur at the time of construction. That process will look at things like parking use data during the interim construction phase, the inventory of parking available in the area, information from City College regarding their TDM efforts, their parking usage, their travel modes, SFMTA transit services that exist and also that will be completed in the area, and a full analysis of the developer's proposed garage operations, design, and pricing approach. Our goal is to accurately serve the need for public spaces that are displaced from the lower reservoir by the project. And this process will ensure that we have current data and current usage to be able to accurately represent that number. I also just want to add that any removal of parking on the City College's upper reservoir would be planned for by the college. Childcare, we have construction of a space for approximately 100 children. The operator must be a nonprofit organization. And through President Yee's leadership, we have a requirement that 50% of the seats are reserved for children of low-income families, subject to availability of operating subsidies. The program will serve a broad range of age groups, including infants and toddlers, and will be open to the general public. Currently, that childcare is planned to be in Building B. Workforce development, finally, the developer must require project sponsors, contractors, consultants to undertake workforce development activities in construction of the project. These policies that are listed on this slide all aim to improve local residents' training, job employment, moving up in the workforce, and also making sure that local businesses are employed and used in the project. So that concludes my presentation. Again, I'm happy to toggle back to specific slides and also happy to talk more specifically about any of the topics. I'll turn it back to you, John. Thanks. Oh, John, you're muted. You have to unmute.
Thank you. Somebody else muted me. Maybe I talked too much. Thank you. So rather than do a roll call, let's try and do an informal round robin with the, or just give and take with the committee members. But if, for order's sake, please raise your hand, at least on screen, and let me know. Michael, even though he's first in line, he's raising his hand anyway, so he goes first.
How do I get unmuted?
You're unmuted. I can hear you.
Oh, okay, good. Well, I'll try to be brief, but it's hard to be brief. This development agreement is woefully inadequate. As somebody says, it has a lot of blanks. It has things that aren't attached to it. I put my comments in writing, but I think all the public have to hear my comments because they only went in writing today. First, with respect to the parking situation. The exhibit to the development agreement talks about parking. It's obvious everybody was working on the 220 number. The 220 number is fictitious. It really is. I've set that forth in prior memos and we'll discuss it briefly today. But the development agreement says that the developer has no obligation whatsoever to have more than, to build more than 450, and it says that they even have a possible obligation to do less. We'll decide it later. We'll decide it later. When I first talked to Ken Rich in the city 4 years ago, he says, Mike, we're going to push this down the road, but we'll get this done by the time we start talking about all of this. And then 2 years ago, Ken Rich says it has to be done by 2018. By the end of 2018, he has to have a handle on the parking so that he can talk about this development agreement we're talking about now. There is no handle on the parking. There is no memorandum of understanding. As I've said before, and as I've said in memorandums, the 220 is a fictitious number. It is a number in the TDM that's the lowest number possible, assuming no building whatsoever on the City College lot. City College has just received $850 million. $850 million from public money to build the PAC, and that's the first thing going in. And that means under the lowest possible number in the TDM, not the highest, the lowest, you need 980 replacement spaces. But that's not the start. If you decide not to fund TDM, then in the most typical day, and not the high day, you're going to need a lot more. You're going to need 1,760 replacement spaces. But let's assume that no TDM is done. Then the low number is 1,374, and the high number is 2,300. This is under the TDM of City College. Just the other day, there was a public meeting of the Facilities Master Planning Commission, of which Bridget, who's on this committee, is a member, and two other trustees. One was standby. They all agreed that this number was not right. They all agreed that the absolute lowest number was 980. So to have a development agreement where you don't even have the developer bound to more than 450 is fictitious. And I do agree with one thing Ken Rich said from the city many years ago, and that is you have to have the memorandum of understanding with City College before you can go forward with the development agreement, and that hasn't happened. I put a timeline in my attachment to show how 220 has been used so many times by the city, but it is a fictitious number. It was the only thing told to us on June 10th, and yet they had the fair report at that time that had another chart. If they had used the right chart way back then, we wouldn't have this situation today. The city's the one that started all of this. They should have given us the right chart. They gave us chart 13, table 13 from the fair report, and not 14. And 14 was the right one. We could have saved a lot of time had we been told this a year ago. But now, at the last minute, we're being given this development agreement that protects nobody and being asked to review it and approve it. The only thing we can say is, this has to be continued. We can't go forward and use a development agreement that is so one-sided in favor of the developer. Now, other comments, that's parking. It's not all about parking. Let's talk about other parts of it. First, under section 12 of the agreement, and this is all in my written document, but I want everybody else to know about this. We talk about transfer of assignment. The key thing about this place is affordable housing. And yet, while the city has the right to review any transfer of the property to another developer for the non-affordable housing, for the affordable housing, the planning director has no say whatsoever. And this is key to the city. And we don't want the affordable housing to be built and then to have this developer who we all approve, then assign it to somebody else who is not responsible to carry out the duties with respect to affordable housing. That has to be changed. Furthermore, and this is all in my memo, we talk about project financing and feasibility. We can't understand anything about the financing. It's confusing. In fact, there's an Exhibit O that is supposed to explain all of this, but there is no Exhibit O. It says to be inserted later. We talked a long time ago about the need to make sure that this project is fiscally reasonable. I made comments to the Board of Supervisors 2 years ago that you shouldn't just push this down the road. This project is probably not fiscally feasible. But now's the time to look at it. And there's absolutely no financial information, no attachment in Exhibit O to come later. Well, how can we approve anything if it's to come later? And in this era of COVID-19, where the city is possibly going to lose $1.5 to $2 billion, it's very crucial to the city to see what's going on here, much less our citizens committee. We have to take a look at the financing of this project. And I did a calculation, it might be right, it might be wrong, but I think the city for the affordable housing will have to come up with $43 million. That's looking at Exhibit D. And is that true? What's the numbers? Do they have to come up with 43 million? And what are the contingencies? I mean, we got a very general report tonight. I appreciate it. But I'd like to know about the financing of this project. Can the city afford it? Can the developers afford it? Where's the background, the Exhibit O that's missing that we haven't seen? In addition to that, there's one other thing. We're saying that next month, we're going to have a sale list property. I listened to the tape today for the presentation 2 years ago on March 15th, 2018. And the city made a nice presentation saying this is an extreme process, a complicated process where you have to determine the purchase price. And she said, we have to get appraisals and we have to negotiate this between the city and the developer for the purchase price of the property from the SFPUC to the developer. Well, next month we're going to be listening to this. Where's the appraisal for the property? What's the purchase price of the property going to be? Is it the right purchase price? Is the city getting a good deal or a bad deal? As a Citizens Advisory Committee, we should be told these things, not general things like we've been told today, but detail. I think that the rest of my comments, yeah, what is the sales price? I discussed that. The rest of my comments are in my memo, but I really think it's key that we as a committee tell the city, the Board of Supervisors, and tell the Planning Commission that their meetings should be continued. We're not ready to review this development agreement.
Okay.
John, maybe I can just, since I know there's detailed comments, I can just offer short responses, or do
Okay,
you want to
sure.
go through?
I was just going to say that Bridget seems to have fallen off her computer. I'm getting text from her computer, seems to have crashed. She's trying to get back on, but I'll just go ahead, please.
Sure. Thank you, Mike, for those comments and for your careful review of the documents. I know they're lengthy, so I do appreciate that. And because you provided the memo earlier today, I was able to read that. And so just want to point out a few things regarding your comment about transfers in 12.1 or section 12. The transfers to different affordable housing developers is dealt with in the Affordable Housing Program exhibit and requires the approval and consultation of the MOCD director. The Mayor's Office of Housing and Community Development is the more appropriate city department to be vetting the qualifications of affordable housing developers. Your question about the financing plan, Exhibit O, that is not a financing plan for the whole project. It is simply a city template regarding the CFD Mello-Roos, which is a special tax that the city authorizes to help fund public infrastructure. It's commonly used on big development projects like this that have a lot of new infrastructure, and the city controls issuing those bonds that the future residents will repay over time to help finance the infrastructure. So that's just a city template that will be inserted into that exhibit. To your question though, the financing terms for the affordable housing are indeed in the affordable housing program. And your other comment in your memo referred to the findings of fiscal feasibility that the board published in 2018. There will indeed be updated feasibility and economic analyses that will be published by a number of people. The Controller's Office will do a report. The Controller's Office will do a report, as well as the board's budget and legislative analyst. So the feasibility will also be updated prior to the board.
Prior to what board?
To the Board of Supervisors' considerations of the project later this summer. Your question about does the city have the $43 million? Yes, as described in the Affordable Housing Program, we estimate that the cost of the city's 17% gap funding for a portion of the affordable housing will cost about $43 million. We've been very careful in working with the Mayor's Office of Housing over the last number of years to incorporate that amount of money into their long-term budget. The affordable housing bond that the city voters passed last November has been a huge success for us in terms of making sure that the city has the funding to expend on this project. And as you'll see in the details of the affordable housing program, MOCD will be working directly with the affordable housing developers to be able to contribute that funding in a flexible manner to best take advantage of the city's cash flow, there are other projects around the city, and to ensure that the city is putting in its funding in the appropriate time and way. Those appropriations, by the way, are subject to future actions of the board, as all appropriations are. Your final comment was about the SFPUC purchase price. That is subject to an ongoing negotiation that will be published. I can check with the PUC Commission about their schedule for publishing, but those are privileged documents right now that are going to be published when the SFPUC Commission packet is published, and everyone will be able to review those.
Well, thank you. Those are very helpful responses. I did know that about Exhibit O. I did not know that you're going to push down the road the fiscal feasibility. And I would just comment.
It's not a push down the road. It's actually, I've already been contacted by all the staff members and the committees that are doing those reports. So they've already begun working on them. It's just the way the Board of Supervisors works. They post those reports closer to the time when the board considers those projects.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else from the committee want to make a comment?
I just want to say that Lee's addressing of Michael's questions answered a lot of my own questions, and I really appreciate the clarification.
Great.
I have some comments, John.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Mark.
For the slides, it shows that the affordable housing units will be deed restricted for the project life, which is 57 years. So I just want to see, I thought they were supposed to be affordable for the entirety of the entire life of those units. And I have a few more comments. I'll just make those before you respond, Lee, if you don't mind. And then if you could give clarification on who signs the developer agreement. Is that Bridge, Mission, all of them, or is it with a with Avalon, and then they I guess, contract with some of the other developers? I think for the transportation, my comment really in terms of parking spaces is that we should be looking forward to innovating on this project. This is an opportunity to include a lot more of these newer transportation modes, using mode shift, bike share, car share, ride share, any kind of sharing method. And I also think that's the future. So I see that there's a lot of doom and gloom with the parking situation, but I think that there is opportunity here to be really innovative in finding great solutions that will address some of the reduction in parking. So those are my final comments there. And I guess the last one is just, for financials, if you guys could just be, it seems like it's kind of bubbling up as one of the concerns with the CAC and some of the community members. And I think I would encourage that would be either come back to us with a actual presentation on the financials. That would be great. Or try to put more documents on the website so that us and the communities can review. Thanks.
Thanks, Mark. Okay,
Go ahead. Did you want to answer some of those questions?
Sure. A couple simple ones. Who signs the DA? That is a great question. The city, as you saw on the city side, the planning director, the mayor's office of housing director, city attorneys, and all of the boards and commissions will consent. So basically all of the city departments and folks responsible will sign on the city side. On the developer side, the developer, as you know, is a partnership of Avalon Bay and Bridge Housing. They have formed a joint venture called Reservoir Community Partners, and they together will be the master developer. The DA will be signed by Reservoir Community Partners. And it's anticipated that, they are able to, as Mike brought up, the DA allows for free transference, but any transfers to different developers down the line come with the obligations and the rights that are codified in the DA. That's a document that's recorded against the land, and so it ensures that all of those obligations flow through. Noted on your comments about parking, we certainly want to be adaptable in the future, and your comment about financials, I'll consider that. For the key question about affordability for the life of the project. I can tell you that it has to do with the financing, but let me just see, Sarah, if you wouldn't mind, I have at least one colleague here from the Mayor's Office of Housing who's in attendance, because I thought we may want to have a discussion about affordable housing, and they are the experts. So Sarah, if you want to maybe address just briefly what the life of the project 57 means and why that is the case.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Sarah Amaral. I'm a senior project manager from the Mayor's Office of Housing and Community Development. For our term, our deed restrictions on all projects that the city is not owning of the underlying land, we maintain a 57-year affordability restriction on all of our projects. And this is partly due to the fact that the different sources of financing that are leveraged in order to fund these affordable housing projects every 15 years have the opportunity to essentially refinance those funds and recapitalize or be able to offer, rehab on the development if there's anything potentially that could have gone wrong structurally, or new roof, what have you. So to that extent, that is why the restriction is lasting for 57 years. And Mo's loans, all of Mo loans, also last for the same amount of time. So, and that is just a standard Mo CD process that is in effect when the city does not own the underlying land.
Thanks, Sarah.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Could I ask a follow-up question or just a comment, I guess, with that response? Thanks. I would just encourage if you can go above that. I'm not sure if there's a restriction in the funding, but these are sold as affordable units, and I want to see them remain affordable for the entirety until those structures eventually rot and decay and fall apart. So I'm not sure if there's a method or way to include that in a DA to ensure that, or a different mechanism, but I would want to ensure that they are affordable.
So this is Sarah again, if I can reply to that. Certainly understand that. One of the reasons why we have a deed restriction onto 57 years is because that is kind of the length of the property, of the life of the property. By law, you're not allowed to extend it past 99 years, regardless for the land, for the underwriting restrictions on land. But so we limit it to 57 in the event that the developer, the sponsor, the nonprofit that's maintaining the property would have to essentially tear it down or what have you. But in all instances, because we have an underlying deed restriction, not just our loan, but we have a deed restriction, and this will also, for any property that goes through Mo CD for any assistance whatsoever, even if it's just technical assistance, we like to provide deed restrictions on the property so that if the property were to change hands or were to try to refinance, Mo CD and the city would always be at the table every time in order to be part of that negotiation. And of course, it's in our best interest for the residents of the city to make sure that we're going to extend that as long as possible. So in the structure of what your comment or your question was about keeping it for the long term, it is as much as the long term of the building life, if that makes sense. But of course, we will always try to extend that as long as possible because we do have that deed restriction. So we're always at the table to negotiate.
Thanks, Sarah. And then I also want to allow Bridge Housing. I think Kirsten is on the line. She may also be able to add some comments.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Lee. This is Kirsten with Bridge Housing. I think Brad is also on the line. He might want to chime in, but I just wanted to represent how we are approaching the affordable parcels and the affordable buildings that we're providing as part of this project. Bridge is providing 3 of the buildings and Mission Housing is providing the 4th one. And both organizations are longstanding community-based nonprofits in the city of San Francisco. Bridge was founded in 1983, and every building we've ever built, we've owned and operated continuously. And that is our intent and our plan here as well. And we're very excited to continue to work with the city, as Sarah indicated, as the properties become eligible for major rehab efforts, we would 100% commit to keeping the affordability in perpetuity for the projects, and that is completely our intent. And I don't know if there are further questions on that topic, but happy to talk about our portfolio a little bit more or provide that information to folks interested in this topic.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any more questions from the committee?
Could I add a comment?
Somebody was raising their hand. Yes, go ahead. Who's speaking, please?
This is Peter Tam.
Oh, go ahead.
I'd just like to add that as
Please
we're
identify, you're from Bridge as well, right?
What's that?
No, I'm sorry.
Peter Tam.
Oh, Peter Tam. I'm sorry.
I just wanted to add that with the transportation piece and with the with what's going to happen with the parking spaces, to fully understand that people are going to be utilizing public transportation, ride share, car share, scooters, and that we keep in mind that other infrastructure needs to grow along those alternative transportation methods. We want to be able to connect not just the Reservoir project with the nearby local businesses, but almost the entire west side, right? It's kind of what the goal will be, and to reduce the reliance on vehicles to say go to Stonestown or anywhere outside of Ocean Avenue, which is the most walkable commercial corridor right now.
Yeah. Okay. Any other comments from the committee?
Yes, this is Maurice, and I just wanted to say that I thank my fellow committee member Michael for calling out the absolute lunacy and buffoonery of those 220 parking spaces, because it's unrealistic to think that 1,100 people are just going to take public transportation or bikes or scooters. That's just unrealistic. And on that note, I would really like to see some either attendance from SFMTA or Clear Channel on what their plan is to either boost the public transportation or in general what their plan is with this project, because it seems like they have a lot to do with this as well, but I don't really hear anything from them. So I'd like to see some either attendance or some writing or what have you from them as well.
Okay, thank you.
Maurice, I'm happy to provide just a clarification. Thank you for that comment. The 220 spaces was a consideration for just public parking. So a public parking garage for somebody who is maybe visiting the area and needs to park for a few hours. The project is also going to be providing 550 parking spaces for residents of the project. So residential parking has been considered separately. Public parking, which was the subject of my slide, it is above and beyond the residential parking. I just wanted to clarify that for you. Thanks for your.
Thanks, Lee.
Okay. Anybody else raising their hand? We're not. Okay, I will go next since it's last. Regarding parking, it's true the 220 parking spots were based on the unserved demand baseline of 220 parking spots was based on just the addition of the Balboa Reservoir. And with the PAC becoming more of a reality, we do want to go to table 14 on the in the TDM document. That number does go up to 980, but that's not the lowest number. It actually, if you apply additional TDM, additional transportation demand measures, that number can go down to 415. What do I mean by additional transportation demand measures? They're included in the TDM, the Fair and Pierce TDM that was presented to the Board of Trustees last March. And that would include fast passes for full-time students, bike share, car share, market rates for parking, and a whole number of bike storage and different things that are available to in the TDM toolbox. That would bring the shortfall down to 415 spaces in 2026 with a 25% increase in enrollment. And I bring this up because at the last meeting of the Board of Trustees, this came up as a question, and it's also been raised here. Trustee Thea Selby said at that meeting that that City College has to lead the way in environmental sustainability. And so what we really, it's at one point the developers were talking about helping to build a big parking lot behind the PAC. And what happened is, it obviously was too expensive. An indoor parking spot cost $50,000 to $70,000. So they didn't want to spend the money. It wasn't realistic. A cheaper way to deal with it is to do these transportation demand management, the additional measures. Even though it might sound expensive to give everybody a fast pass, it's still cheaper than building a garage. Let's also pay attention to the fact that if we build a parking lot with 980 spots in it, you're going to have that many cars driving in and out of that garage every day. In fact, you'll probably have more than that. Each parking spot will probably hold more than one car. So that contributes to the congestion on the street and the pedestrian safety problems that will result, and it would slow down Muni as well. So it's something that we really have to work with City College on. And to be honest, communication with City College has been spotty at best. As I said earlier, Chancellor Roach is gone, James Son is gone, Charmaine Curtis has just got back, which is great. And it would be really incumbent and really important right now on all of us to get this MOU together with City College and nail down this parking problem, because I think it's something. And also, let's not forget a resolution from earlier in the meeting, including usable bike lanes and usable sidewalks and better transit connections on Ocean Avenue will definitely help in terms of managing demand of transportation. So I'm glad to see that Charmaine is back, and I'm glad that MOU is being negotiated, and I really think it's not too late to get it on the table and to make it happen. But I think 450 spaces is actually, if you look at the numbers in table 14 of the TDM, with these extra measures, that would work. And one other thing is, a lot of people say, well, what is this TDM thing? It's a bunch of mumbo jumbo. How do we know it's going to work? And I say that these are tried and true things that have been used in the past, and you only have to look at the Santa Monica Community College down in LA, the city of cars, to realize that it actually does work down there. They have a very similar TDM down there, and it's got teeth. They have to meet their goals, and as a result, they have very little parking in LA, city of cars, and everybody manages to have access to the school at the same time. So it does work, and it can work here too. So with that, I'll open up to public comment. If everybody's still here, we have 54 people. So
John, maybe I'll just I want to clarify again, because I know that transportation and this process, I want to make sure everyone understands this. So we absolutely are trying to be responsive to the then current need and demand and usage for this public parking. As you said, it is, and Peter Tam also mentioned, it is all contingent on, is SFMTA improving transit nearby? What is happening at the college? What is the observed demand? What is the analysis? What does student enrollment at the college look like? All of those things, and including how effective is the developer's TDM if they have begun to install that? How effective is City College TDM? All of those things will have an upward or downward effect on how much public parking may actually be necessary, which is why it's imprudent to set a number right now. And so that's why we've developed this process to make sure we're taking advantage of all of those conditions and using that to create a systematic approach for what the right amount is. The other thing I just want to reiterate is certainly we will be addressing the loss of parking from the lower reservoir in our project. That has been a commitment from day one, as Mike so carefully laid out in his memo. The college obviously has an ambitious plan through their facilities master plan to develop a number of large buildings on the upper reservoir and elsewhere on the main campus. They will themselves, I'm sure, have a robust discussion about how to mitigate or replace the loss of any parking spaces on their own property. And again, we will be happy to continue collaborating with them on that. But our focus is very much in terms of developing the lower reservoir.
Yeah, and Lee, this is Joe Kirchhoffer from Avalon Bay, or John, can I chime in too? Just, there's there were a lot of comments there on parking, and I just, I'm looking at the, there's 56 participants on right now, and this has been going on for a long time. We've been talking about this. I mean, parking and replacement parking was a primary piece of our RFP, proposal. It's been a primary topic on a lot of the CAC meetings for years. And so I want to just sort of back up, because there are, there are a lot of real concerns, and, there have been a lot of real concerns about this throughout. There's also a lot of incorrect information being thrown out. So I just want to back up a little bit. And I have a couple of things to pull up, but I don't, we can put together another presentation and come back a little bit more formally. But, what has been the task all along, as Lee just said, our commitment has been to replace the spaces that are being used in the lower reservoir. It's been our task all along to figure out, okay, how many of those are being used? It's, I hope we can all agree. I think there's very clear evidence that very rarely, if ever, are all 1,000 of those spaces filled with, even in the first couple of weeks of school, it's, 75% full, 80% full is what the data has shown. We have done a lot of studies. The college has done a lot of their own studies. We've heard a lot of input on prior studies, on the Nelson Nygaard studies from I guess it was the mid 2010s. That they were at the wrong times, the wrong part of the school calendar, and so we did extensive testing, all in middle of the weekdays, all during normal instruction days, not the week of finals, not the week before finals. And all that data, all that we've made all that data public. We can make it public again. It all actually went into the college's TDM plan, which is why we've been citing that. The college's own study. It's frankly, it's a great resource, because it looks at holistically the entire college, how parking may change over time given a bunch of different factors. And I think it has been a good guidepost for all of us in this process to figure out what that right number is. Just to talk a little bit about what we plan to do, and I don't know if I'm allowed to share a screen, but I'm just going to try to do it and see if it works.
Not sure about that.
All right, I think Lee, you have to give me the controls.
All right.
I'm going to step away. I'll be able to hear you, but I'm stepping away for a minute.
Okay, thanks, John. So if folks can see this, so a key part of our plan has been to do some sort of public garage on our site. Now, we had in previous iterations, folks that have been in this process for a long time will remember that we had another partner that was coming to these meetings, Pacific Union Development, who's done public-private partnership parking garages at other college campuses. We had hoped to get into a lot of sort of other creative ideas for how this could be done. Frankly, had a lot of conversations with the college's old facilities master plan team about, okay, could we do a big shared garage up on the upper reservoir and combine the lower reservoir display spaces and the upper reservoir display spaces and put something together that would be bigger? And worked really hard for that win-win. And frankly, I'm not sure how else to say it. It just fizzled. And, we couldn't get the attention of the people at the college that had been designated to make that decision. Are we still willing to work on that? Absolutely. Charmaine, frankly, was one of the people that was involved. And if she can pick it back up, we're happy to pick it back up. But we can't wait for that to happen. I think we've been pretty clearly instructed by the city that we need this housing. And so we shouldn't, as a city, be waiting for that to happen. We need to produce this housing. And so what we've done in the time being is to fall back on sort of our baseline plan for how to determine the right number and fall back on factors that we can control. And so what I'm showing on the screen here is a page from It's maybe the draft DSG. I don't know if I have the perfectly final version, so forgive me if it's a little bit off. But I don't know if you can see my cursor. This is site plan. What we've identified is that there are 2 locations where public parking will be provided on the site. Building A, and this would be either underneath or within building A, and then underneath or within building G. Now those buildings were chosen because they're in phase 2. And what this allows us to do, and I'll slip to this view. Can folks see my screen?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
so what's here, the orangish boxes here are the phase 2 sites. So what this screen looks like is basically, well, phase 1 is under construction, and then after the phase 1 buildings are completed, this is what the site will look like. And during this time, these orange areas we've said all along are going to be used for public parking. And for, frankly, what that means is for City College parking. And this, we've got another diagram. I don't have it right in front of me, but this is at least 400 cars. I think it's 450 if we tighten it up. This provides a little bit of a laboratory, and this is what we say when we're going to study the future parking. This isn't a way to kick the can down the road. This is a way to say, look, parking is a really critical resource. It's a very expensive resource, and we don't want to use all of the funds that we have that could be going to other public benefits or to affordable housing to create spaces that aren't going to be used. And so these lots are going to be operated as public parking. It will be, they will function just like the lower reservoir does now. It will be City College overflow parking. And we'll know exactly how many people are parking there, every day, because we'll keep the data. And so what was in our draft MOU with the city, which we had hoped to get farther on, was this concept that we'll operate this property, we'll operate this parking lot, we'll gather the data, and we'll know exactly how many people are using this parking lot and this resource. And so those terms have been put into the DA, and it's been the process Lee is describing is, we'll have all this data, we'll know exactly how many cars are there, and then we can size those garages in building G and building A to the right size for what's needed. If we build 400 spaces and we only need 100, it's a waste, not just of for the developers, but for all of the other subsidy that's going into this project could be better spent. So that's our plan. Like I said, we had hoped to come to a more creative solution with the city or with the college, frankly. And while that's still on the table, it's going to need to happen, and we're going to need to know exactly how, who over there we're going to work with on it. We're happy to come. I've reached out to Stephen Brown. We're happy to come and meet with the facilities committee, but it is going to be something that's a complicated project and not something that we can provide on our own. And that's why, what's in the DA is what we know we can achieve on our own.
Can I ask, Joe, can I ask you one question about what you just said?
I want to point out one other thing, and then, I also want to point out just the discrepancy in some of the numbers. We're using the 220 number because it is the best estimate of the loss of spaces that are being used on the lower reservoir. That report, Mike, you cited some extremely large, 2,000 space numbers, and that's more than what's on the lower reservoir right now. That report was intended as a planning tool for the college, for the entire campus. And so, there's 3 major parking lots on the campus. There are lots of big numbers. And if the college builds on all of their other parking lots, sure, there's going to be a parking shortage. But what we have committed to and what we can control is to replace what's being used on the lower reservoir. And so, the table 13 versus table 14. Table 14 with the 980 spaces shows that the college is going to take up a lot of its own parking by building other buildings. And I hope that happens. We're all excited for the bond to pass. But that's not a responsibility that we can take on. I'm heartened by John's comments. I noticed that too, that, if we can just figure out TDM, we actually can get there with the 450 and it would work great. But again, based on where we're at, we need to fall back on what we can control.
One question, Joe, on what you said, is this parking solely for City College, or is it also public parking for people that are visiting the merchants, that are visiting people? Is it for public parking for all, or public parking just for City College?
It would be public parking for all. We don't have a way to certify whether people are students of the college. So we're going to open up as public. We're open. We actually would be happy to work with the college to create a student parking program, you know, or a faculty parking program. We know that's been something that's been talked about. Again, that was, you know, frankly, I'm not sure if it's in the draft MOU, but we were planning to have it end up there. But without a way for us, you know, that's not something that we can do on our own. We would need the college to be issuing some sort of a pass to their students so we could verify that they're the, you know, that they are the parkers.
One last question. This would be public parking at market rate, it says in your development agreement, correct? Market rate?
Market rate. And so what we've said in prior meetings is, you know, that's not like a downtown market rate. What we think market rate would be out here would be something like $8 to $10 a day. You know, we would be open to negotiating a special rate for the college. And again, that's something that that we just need college participation on because we can't do it on our own.
Well, I think we're all in agreement, Joe, that those discussions should progress. And I like your beard.
Thank you. Harry Bernstein sent me a private message and was complimenting it. And if I can get a compliment from Harry, I'm happy on beards.
Great. Are there any other comments? It looks like we still have not got Bridget Davola back. So that's sad because she's the representative from the board of trustees. But I really think that the board needs to watch this presentation. This is all going to be online, and I will send an email to Bridget to alert her colleagues of the board of trustees to watch this and see if they have any other comments that they can bring forward. But I think there's a lot of the questions that they had at their meeting last week have been clarified today. So I really appreciate all the team coming together for this.
Public comment for everyone?
Yeah, we are going to do public comment.
Yes, there's a robust discussion on chat, and if it's, I don't know if that gets saved or not, but if you want to have it on the record, you should get on the public comment.
Yeah, it will be posted alongside, but yeah, we'll do. So, Tomasita, there's a few people ahead of you, so we'll call on you.
Okay, thank you.
2 minutes.
2 minutes. We'll start with Rita Evans.
And Joe, let me put up the public comments slide.
Yeah, there you go. Sorry about that.
Okay. Rita?
Can you hear me? I
Yeah,
may be having, okay, now you can. Okay, good. Can you possibly show the transportation community benefits slide? One thing I wanted to note about the TDM as it's being presented here is it's almost all planning and analysis. It doesn't seem to involve much implementation, operational improvements, or maintenance. And the plans and analysis really are not of much benefit to the community, while the implementation and maintenance are essential if we're going to realize any benefits from the project. And what we need is a commitment for more frequent and more reliable transit service, not an analysis of service. And we need an affordable parking rate for the students at City College, not a plan. We need regular traffic signal maintenance for that sophisticated coordinated traffic signal system on Frida Kahlo and Ocean Avenue. We need safety improvements for pedestrians on Ocean Avenue. We need a repurposing of the street space on Frida Kahlo so that we can have a transit-only lane and better bicycle lanes. We need a commitment for a developer-funded shuttle to run between the project site and the Balboa Park station. And somehow that last benefit, the shuttle, seems to keep disappearing no matter how often the public keeps saying that it's really important and a community benefit we definitely want to see. Thank you.
Thank you, Rita.
Next is Chris Hansen.
Are you muted, Chris?
Mute. Hi.
There you are.
Thanks. In regard to building a parking structure on City College's upper lot, the reason that was dropped, one of the reasons is that Reardon High School did not want a large parking structure right up against their building. That was part of the reason. The other part was that survey of voters did not want to pay to build parking in educational school bonds. The fifth, and then I'm going to jump around here because there was so much. The sunset of the affordable housing at 50 years. Now you said that's if it's a privately owned property. What about if it remains a publicly owned property? Does that mean it will is able to stay affordable in its entirety? And I'd like to say also the BART shuttle has been completely dropped from this developer agreement, despite the fact that Fear and Pierce, which Joe praised a moment ago, names a BART shuttle as one of the 5 main TDM strategies for City College. And one of the ways that was investigated was running a BART shuttle straight up Ocean Avenue, which isn't going to help, but having a BART shuttle run to the south of campus would be the only thing that takes commuters away from the bottleneck of Ocean Avenue. In the transportation plan of the DA, Exhibit J, big B, little b, in regards to replacement parking, it says during the initial site-wide grading phase of construction of the project, no publicly available parking spaces will be provided. Doesn't that mean that as the project breaks ground, all of that parking will go away in contradiction to what was said? Is that my time?
Yeah, it's your time.
Okay, I got about 8 more things. Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chris.
Mark Tang, did you have another comment or was that an old hand?
That was an old hand. I could bring it down. Sorry.
Yeah, no worries. I can do it too. Just checking. Russell? Russell, are you there? Would you like to speak?
Yes, I would. Are you?
Yeah, you're unmuted. Go ahead.
My apologies to the CAC. I have a more basic underlying issue, which is why San Francisco is giving away.
Can you speak a little close? Are you on a speakerphone, Russell? Maybe you could speak to the actual phone.
I'll shut my. I grew up in a housing project in the Bronx where the city owned the building. And I'm wondering why the city of San Francisco can't maintain ownership of the land and hire a construction management company to build out this development and make the property 100% affordable.
Okay, thank you very much for that comment. Do we have another speaker?
We have Harry Bernstein.
Yes, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. First, I want to
Speak right into the speaker, please.
Yes,
If you're on a speakerphone, maybe go to a regular headset.
I want to endorse the shuttle concept. And apparently the one source of that money would be some of the $1.9 million generated from that market rate parking. When I was, you don't idly look through the development agreement, but I just happened to cross page 28 of the PDF. I'll read just a little bit. No development obligation. It says, there is no requirement under this agreement the developer initiate or complete development of the project or any phase or portion thereof. There is also no requirement that development be initiated or completed within any period of time or in any particular order, subject to the requirement to complete associated community benefits, etc. I was astonished, and maybe that's just a fail-safe in case of a cataclysm of some sort, but what kind of assurance should we have with all these promises of huge benefits and all the concessions that are expected, plus 40-some million dollars of city money? Anyway, that was of concern to me, so thank you.
Next speaker.
So I think the next speaker is a phone number, 334-3892. Go ahead.
That's not my number, but maybe that's me because I've been trying to get through. This is Laura Fry from Westwood Park. And I just had a couple comments about a few things. One concern is the first couple years of the meetings, they kept talking about 99 years. 99 years being the number of years for the affordable deed or whatever word they're using. And this whole thing about the affordable thing still seems mushy to me, that it's still not a guarantee that it will all stay affordable. And then when the transfer has an approval by a person in a committee, I feel like that's mushy too, because sometimes people do things that like what our committee would have wanted them to do. Because I think everybody agrees we want this to be affordable forever. And it just doesn't seem like, it still seems mushy. Again, that 57-year change from 99 years within 2 years, it just doesn't make sense to me. Another one was a community amenity that hasn't been talked about is security. When Whole Foods opened, it was a sieve. I've worked in retail most of my life, and there was a lot of thievery. And I kept nagging management, telling them, look, you got to get security in there. I'm sure other people were doing the same thing. And finally now they have security in there all the time. And you still see thieves occasionally, but it's manageable. Another one was, I haven't seen the infrastructure document, but I hope that the firefighting capability is going to be developed to house this big a development. We live in a residential area. We don't have the firefighting capability of downtown dense housing like they're planning on putting here. And the other thing was that parking thing still seems strange to me. The 220 hypothetical, and then the up to 450, which again is mushy because 220 is still up to 450 on a mathematical scale. So 220 would not work for if you just have 450 or 550 for the residents. And a lot of these residents, they're going to have more than one adult. They might have 3 or 4 adults in an apartment. To have a half a space for each of those units and then just 220 for all the rest of the residents, all the visitors, all the city college students just seems very low. Thank you very much.
I'm going to try this number again, 334-3892. Is that person still on? I don't see it here. So I will go to Madeline Mueller. Madeline, would you like to speak?
Okay, am I on?
You're on.
Okay, I just wanted to clear up a little bit of history about the parking of the quote upper reservoir. When that land was traded in the early 90s to City College, I was part of that campaign. It was never, ever, ever in the plans to be parking. The master plan, which was approved by the city, that was a 10-year plan from 2004 to 2014, had the lower reservoir as our parking. That was approved, and PUC said that was true, and even if they did water, we had air rights, that was parking. The upper reservoir was to have the Performing Arts Center and another building, always. There was never a parking situation. Then the state, and the money was there, but the state ran out of funding for it in 2008. So it's taken that long for the funding to come back in and do what was in the plan all along. So to say that somehow, I hear this sort of in the context, oh, well, if City College is just going to start building a bunch of buildings. Well, no, the parking was always temporary. The buildings were always planned. They were funded by 2 other bond measures, or at least the PAC was, and now we have the STEM. This is not plopping down buildings, and it was a temporary parking situation. The bottom lot was always legally leased ours, period. Now in 2014, the master plan on file ran out. We were illegally taken over by forces that wanted the college to really diminish. And those are the people you talked to in those years. We were taken over from 2013 up until 2017, maybe 16, but 17 really. And then we had a pretty dysfunctional group to be talking to. So it's been an unfortunate situation, and the semantics is really wrong from the get-go. I hope people keep this in mind. My last question is, when you say that there's going to be, that is the last question. Okay, I'll save that one. Bye.
Steve Marzo.
Hi, thanks for letting me make a comment. I live across the street from the proposed project site, right next to Whole Foods. And I want to speak for all the future residents that don't get to comment in these kind of meetings. I see this project as an investment in the future, and that's a future that involves density and transit. And it's a way to really build for the future. I used to walk to BART and take that into work, and I love that. I'm a San Francisco resident that doesn't own a car. And, you know, I bike as much as possible. I like to walk, and I would love to see our city really support that kind of citizen, because there is a lot of us here that, you know, don't need to have parking and really embrace the public transit view of the city. This is a unique opportunity because it's right in the center of 3 different types of transit. You have your light rail, fast rail, all those bus routes that commute and have a central hub here. So this is, you know, for a resident like me and for the residents that could potentially live here who, you know, would be fully supportive of that, a great opportunity. Thanks.
Thank you. There's some consensus on the chat. Thank you very much, Martin. Steve. There's some consensus on the chat that Hedda is trying to get through. Has anybody seen that? Maybe that line that was dead might have been Hedda. But if, Hedda, if you're out there, try and call again.
Okay, so next is Theodore Randolph.
All right. So I didn't want to comment on the parking. I think if there's a smaller number of parking spaces, then that will resolve itself. People will drive less. But I had a question about the up to language about the affordable ownership properties. Why is it up to 20 affordable home ownership units? Like, does that mean that depending on how the economy works out, that they might shift some of those home ownership units, or some of the affordable units from home ownership to rental instead? So the way that this project works, like, one of the limitations is that the SFPUC is required to seek fair market value for the land. But one of the inputs to the value of the land is the affordable housing percent that the city is requiring developers to provide, which is, according to the DSG, is a floor of 50%. So, so I don't like seeing the language of at least, or I prefer to see a language of at least. I don't like to see up to when discussing affordable housing in this thing. Right, thank you.
Okay, next is Yanren.
Hello, this is Jonathan Randolph. Something I think is missed in a lot of the public comments is that one of the missing public benefits of this project is more housing. In order to make the city more affordable, we need more housing, and is something that's sort of missing in a lot of the comments, and it's something that's missing in the developer agreement. You know, the public benefits section doesn't mention more housing. Why don't we put that in the public benefit portion of the DA? Because what if the developer goes ahead and builds like roads and stuff and doesn't even build the housing that we need? Now, that's somewhat of a facetious comment because they're not going to build anything without building housing, which is what makes it profitable. But just because it's profitable to the developer doesn't mean that we should forget that housing is a public benefit. That's what the city needs more of now. And so similar to what Theodore was saying earlier, some of the things that we're concerned aren't in the DA. We're concerned about because they're not in the DA, but if it's aligned with the incentives of the developer, then we don't have to worry about those as much because it's in their interest to make it work out anyway. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Wind.
Hi, I'm Wind Kaufman. I'm an engineering instructor at City College, and I'm just wondering about the housing that is going to be giving preferential, I don't know, treatment for faculty and staff at City College, because I was under the impression that that was not actually a legal thing to do unless the college owned the land. So could you address that?
I guess we can address that during the follow-up comments.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Make a note of that.
Jennifer? Jennifer Hagee, are you there?
I don't see her name.
Unmuting. Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you now.
Okay, sorry. So Madeline talked about these plans have been in decades to have the Performing Arts Education Center or to have the Diego Rivera Theater replaced. And yes, it was the PUC that's really ignored education, which I would think would be a public utility. It should be seen as a public utility, so that City College actually meets their needs for parking, because it's not going to get done otherwise. And I also wanted to mention that in the principles and parameters we spent many years working on, we requested a 65-foot height limit. And so somehow there's been some height creep since the developers responded to the RFP, and it's gone up to 78 feet. And that is so far out of range of the environment, and it's going to create a lot of potential issues. It just doesn't belong here. And in the one planning class I've had, basically you try to move the highest heights nearer to commercial areas, and as you move away into residential areas, it goes down. So you're doing exactly the opposite, it appears to me. And so those were the two issues. I also wanted to ask if I could give any extra of my time to Christine, because she said she had about 9 different things.
We can add 35 seconds.
Okay, Christine. Chris, can you go? She said the development will add at least 550 luxury units. What else does she say? Those are on the chat. I don't know if she's on. I have to give up the hand, sorry. Lower my hand. Is that Chris?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
Okay. They talk about the North Road. I can't even get into that in 35 seconds, but.
No, you have 2 minutes and 35 seconds.
Oh, wow. Gosh. A dedicated pedestrian light put in right now before the construction starts at Cloud Circle would be very helpful, because we're going to have a lot of trucks. They're going to do grading, and grading means big trucks carrying dirt. And students come through there. There's a bike. There's a motorcycle parking right there, and students cross. I cross there too. That shouldn't be a part of any negotiations. It should just go up. And since SFMTA is involved in all of this planning, it seems to me that's something that SFMTA could just get going. That's a light where you push the button, and when class ends and 30 people want to cross, at the same time, they're crossing with a big flashing yellow light. Okay, that's my most compelling thing. There's a bunch of others, but thank you, Jennifer.
Okay.
Next, we have a phone number. For one, I'm gonna see if I can unmute the person.
Hi, this is Laura from Westwood Park. I tried talking before. Did you guys hear me before?
Oh yeah, we heard you. Laura Fry?
You already heard me?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. We're gonna go to Martin then.
Hi, I'm Martin. I would like to talk in favor of this project just in generally because we do absolutely need more housing. The fact this is 50% affordable housing is going to be a huge boon for the neighborhood, as well as adding more units just to the market in general. A reminder to the folks on the call that market rate units are what firefighters and teachers live in because they make too much money to actually be in affordable housing because of the limits from the federal government. I was just on a call regarding safe sleeping sites in parks and other city-owned spaces. And a lot of the folks on the phone call were saying, you know, like, oh, we don't want people to be able to use safe sleeping sites because, you know, I don't want to see tents in my parks or in public spaces. And they were all saying, oh, you know, we need to build more housing. We need to build places for these, for people who are unhoused to go. And so now I'm in this meeting and I'm hearing like a million excuses why we shouldn't build housing, even though it's 50% affordable. So we don't want tents in parks, but we don't want housing either. I mean, something has to give. We have to build more housing or else we're going to see more and more unhoused folks. And this area has absolutely nothing there. So there's no threat of displacement. In fact, we're adding 500 or more affordable units, which means 1,000 or maybe 1,500 people might be able to live in affordable units here in the city. I mean, for me, it's a no-brainer. And I think that the parking concessions are absolutely ridiculous. It's near a bunch of light rail, heavy rail like BART. We've got a project here that is just in the perfect space. And I'm someone who's never owned a car. So I believe it's crazy to me to see so many parking spaces added next to really good public transit. And that's pretty much my comment.
Thank you.
I think that's it, John. That's all we have. If there's anybody else, oh, Tomasita, you were trying to talk earlier. Are you still here?
Yes, I'm still here. Wait a minute. I have to raise my.
You're good. You're good. Just go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. Also, before she starts, David Tejeda was trying to get through a while back. David, are you there? Will you want to raise your hand and be next after Tomasita? Go ahead, Tomasita, sorry.
Thank you very much. Well, actually, I'm really saddened and astonished listening to the chutzpah of the developers. It's like watching, to me, Donald Trump, because you guys don't care whether you destroy City College or not. City College was here first, and City College serves the entire San Francisco Bay Area, and it serves everybody in San Francisco, not just the people who live in nearby neighborhoods. And it is the only way that people who are poor have a chance to get an education and get a trade and lift themselves out of poverty. And it is a critical asset for people of color from throughout our city and who might live far away and don't have the luxury of being able to take what it takes a long time to get on a public transportation that is absolutely full to the capacity. And now that we have, we're supposed to be keeping social distance, how are you going to do that when right now Muni and BART are at absolute capacity? So, you know, a funny thing is that the people who are very able-bodied and young and obviously not from here, because San Franciscans are more pragmatic and I think more loving and considerate of everyone. We need to accommodate everyone, not just the able-bodied who say, oh, why do people have cars? They don't have a right to have cars. Hey, live and let live. And if you already came here with your education, fine, but we native San Franciscans have been paying taxes for our whole lives, and City College is a service that serves everybody. And so for the developers to come in and say, well, our cause is better than yours. Hey, there's plenty of other lots you can build on. And that lot, to put 1,100 units is way too much density for that. And to turn it into a Soviet-style slum with all these high-rise concrete buildings is just wrong. It is, this lot has been part of City College, and it serves the entire City College, serves the entire city. And don't be so So rude, you developers, find a different lot, but don't destroy City College, because you know damn well you're gonna destroy City College if you build this huge, intense fire trap development on this lot. And have mercy on those of us who have a need to better ourselves through an education.
Thank you, Thomasita.
There's plenty of other lots, but there's only one City College.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments.
You're welcome.
I see some more names there.
I think you mentioned that David, I don't see him on here.
He was showing up as Michael earlier, but he was unable to get through.
Give him one more second. David, if you're on, go ahead.
That was about half an hour ago, so maybe he's gone.
Okay, I don't see anybody else. Thanks.
Okay. Sorry, David. Okay, any follow-up discussion? Let's try and make it snappy with the committee. Any hands?
Since I'm first, alphabetical, I'll just make a very short observation.
I'm always last alphabetically, but that's okay.
Oh, you want to go last? Go.
No, go ahead. I'm just kidding.
Oh, wait, I'll be last. No.
No, go ahead, please.
Okay. Well, I believe we're in a crisis right here because I think many of the things that Thomasita said in their last comment are true. We could be killing City College right here, but it's really up to the responsible people at City College to tell us if we are, what they think about it. And we've got to have an MOU before we have a development agreement. And this thing's going in 10 days to the Planning Commission for the first stab at approving a development agreement that doesn't have protection I think City College is going to find it needs. So I would urge us to tell the Planning Commission that they should continue this for a month or so, and then we should also urge City College and the city to get together, knock their heads together and do a deal. That's my suggestion. That's what I think we ought to do as a committee. We don't pass many resolutions, but I think we were in a consensus that this MOU is crucial. Even Ken Rich said it was crucial 2 years ago. I know there's been problems at City College, there have been transitions, but they have people back there now that are ready to work. And just a few days ago, I don't know if I mentioned it, but there was a meeting of the Facilities Master Planning and Oversight. That's not the Facilities Committee of Staff, that's the trustees, that's Davila. That's 3 trustees that are charged with this. And they said they were going to make such a request to the Planning Commission. I think we should join them.
Any more comments?
No, that's it, John. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, seeing none.
I wanted to say something.
Oh, go ahead, Maurice, please.
I just wanted to thank everyone, my fellow committee members, as well as the general public for the fantastic commentary that we've gotten tonight. And I will speak for myself in saying that at the end of the day, I really want more affordable housing. I want a community that does not impose on the Westwood Park neighbors or the OMI neighbors. And I want future generations of City College students to be able to continue to have an affordable education. And I think at the end of the day, that's what I think all of us want. So thanks, everyone.
Okay, thank you, Maurice. I guess that does it for item 6. Before we do general public comment, I understand that Amy has a small presentation. Are you there, Amy?
I am here. Feel a bit worn out.
Yeah, it's been a long night.
Yeah, it's been a long night, and I think perhaps I should reserve my comments for the next CAC meeting. It's too late. It's not fair.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine with me. We'll put you on the agenda next time. It'd probably be better to have everybody be prepared.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Amy. All right, well, with that, we'll go to general public comment. You can move right into the public comment. Oh, you can just move right into it right now and raise your hand. And the last bunch of comments were pretty much public comment, but general public comment. But if you have something that's not related to anything that's on the agenda, you can talk about that now too, as long as it has to do with the reservoir for City College.
I don't see any hands up, so just doing, oh, there. Go ahead, Harry. Go ahead.
In line, please, Tomasita.
Okay, go ahead, Harry. You're first, and then Jennifer, and then Tomasita.
Okay. This one thing was for the committee itself. You know about the governor's executive order from early March. I think it's N2520, and it calls for each body, you know, like this CAC, to have a place where people can actually come and make a comment and observe the proceedings. It's in provision 11 of that agreement. It said, consistent with the notice requirement, each state or local body must notice at least one publicly accessible location from which members of the public shall have the right to observe and offer public comment at the public meeting, consistent with the public's right of access and public comment. I'd like to know what the provisions you have made for that, and I don't expect you to know it tonight, but maybe you could report back on that the next time. Then one other thing, you know, so there was the RFP and RFQ process, and you ended up with 3 choices, and Avalon Bay was chosen. And maybe I talked to someone else about this. They said it really wouldn't matter if it's them or someone else. But, you know, with this, with what is being proposed, it's 89% is rental, and you know, some portion of that is affordable that will have restrictions on it. But this is, you know, market rate. I've been looking around to see if I can find what kind of information there is of people who actually live in there. That's what we're talking about, places for people to live. And I'm just amazed at the responses that people have, how much they're forced out of the places that they, you know, agree to live, and then they come in after a 1-year lease and say, well, it's an algorithm that just determines how much we charge and jack up the rents. And I'm just wondering, I'll have to collect some of this. I'm just wondering if Avalon Bay is a reliable and a legitimate landlord to justify the $43 million that it's going to be receiving for the city, if it's not going to give people a stable place because of their requirements to make so much money. And I hope people will look into this, maybe even the BRCAC.
Thank you, Harry. Your time was up about a minute ago. Sorry, I didn't stop you. I think Wynn Kaufman, she's online here. She had a question last time up, and I promised to answer it at a break, but I can't remember what it was now. Wynn, are you still around? Okay, we'll go to the next speaker, maybe if she comes back.
Okay, I think that Jennifer is the next speaker.
Okay, this is Jennifer. I just want to lay out some of the impact of this development. So those who choose athletics at City College, Reardon, or Lake Wilmerdine will play in an area that's being added to a regional database for high risk due to reduced air quality. And the reason the area is being added to the database is the Balboa Reservoir development. Residents nearby and the children at the nearby daycare centers will be impacted, and daycare centers are required to have outdoor play areas. So we can't forget the impacts. Because the noise during construction has been identified to have significant adverse impacts even after mitigation, children, residents, and students will find it more difficult to read, concentrate, memorize, or figure out complex problems during the multiple periods of excessive noise. Now, I've said this before, but I think it needs to be said again because nobody's talking about it. Because large buildings are being constructed, the concrete pours will ensure construction goes beyond the hours of 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. and many sleepless nights. There will be many sleepless nights in the adjacent residences. Construction trucks will be coming in or out of the Balboa Reservoir every 2 or 3 minutes from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. daily for months. And that will affect access to and from City College and Reardon and all the nearby streets. Workers in adjoining neighborhoods will be faced with gridlock when attempting to get to work or their clients. The many child care centers in the area will become difficult to reach by parents, and parent clients, as well as the child care businesses, will find it easier to take their business elsewhere. So an area known for being family friendly will no longer be so. Families will once again move out of San Francisco, and those that don't are likely to experience higher levels of disease and cancer. And these are serious concerns that we need to be thinking about. Thank you.
Good timing. I see here that I guess Christine Hansen posted that on the chat here that Wynn wanted to know what will allow the developer to guarantee a first consideration for City College teachers for affordable teacher housing. We were under the impression that this could only happen when City College owns the property. Is there anybody who can answer that question? I'm curious about that too.
Hi, Jay. Oh, Kirsten, you go ahead.
I promised to answer.
Hi, everyone. This is Kirsten again, Bridge Housing. It's getting dark over here. Yeah, so we've worked through this structure and we're very excited to continue to work with City College on making sure all the teachers know, educators know about this opportunity. But as long as we have exclusive use of the property or a portion of the property for City College staff, we're able to make it available to just the educator pool. So that would be staff and faculty at City College. And this is something that we've looked at, sort of how the city, or how the state's legislation works around this to make sure that it was legal. And we've got some documentation that I can share offline and describe the structure in more detail. But we're very excited about it, and we're very excited to continue to partner with City College to find the right mix of units and affordability for the participants, educator households.
Great, thank you very much. Any more speakers?
Yeah,
public comment?
Tomasita, remember?
Oh, go ahead.
Thank you.
Hold on 1 second. Go ahead.
Okay, so speaking of the chutzpah of the developers, the Balboa Park Station Master Plan, which was passed after much public discussion in 2009, called for a maximum of 500 units on, if there were ever building on that land, that it would be a maximum of 500 units. To ask for, to put 1,100 units up to 78 feet high, it's just cruel, and it's insensitive, and it's wrong. But more than anything, I want to point out that what the city needs is more affordable housing. We don't need more market rate housing. There's tens of thousands of units in the pipeline of market rate housing because it is so lucrative. So we're not going to solve the affordable housing problem by building more units of market rate housing. What we need to solve the affordable housing problem is to build more affordable units. So this project, if it were to be built, which we don't think it should be built because it would destroy City College, but any housing, as far as we're concerned, all housing in San Francisco should be 100% affordable at this time, that there should be a moratorium on market rate housing because, like I said, there's thousands of units in the pipeline that have already been approved in market rate. And so all housing that's built from now on, for we'll say the next 10 years, should be 100% affordable. And that would solve the problem of the need for 100% affordable housing, not building things that are 10 or 20% affordable and the rest is market. The more market rate housing you build, the more market rate people will come in, and it'll gentrify the neighborhoods, but that doesn't do anything to solve the problem of the need for affordable housing. Thank you.
Okay.
This project should be 100% affordable, even though it shouldn't even be built in the first place. But if it were to be built, it should be 100% affordable.
Got it. Thank you very much. Is Christine Hansen still raising her hand? I can't quite tell if.
Yes. Yes.
Go ahead, please.
Okay.
Thank you. I'll be brief, I promise. So I just want to remind you guys, this process started during the state takeover. Madeline was very clear about that. And so many of the meetings didn't include a wider discussion of the people that are the actual stakeholders at City College, including at the beginning, the Board of Trustees weren't even.
To speak into the microphone. So.
Okay. Can you, how about that? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Is that better?
Yes, better.
Okay. So the board wasn't even included. And right now, various CCSF groups and committees are drafting resolutions to address what they feel are very important issues on, that are showing up in this development. But even those are going to run out of time. For example, the facilities committee isn't going to even be able to meet again until after the EIR is already finalized. So I'm afraid at this schedule, a lot of City College input is just basically going to fall to the wayside, even including all of us talking a lot tonight. So thank you. Oh, I'm done.
You're done. Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm sorry. I'm looking for the next victim. I mean, customer.
I think we're done, John.
All right. Well, with that, I will close the meeting.
Hey, John.
Excuse me? Oh, I'm sorry. Any more comments?
I think we ought to discuss right now our next meeting date, because look at what we just heard today. The SFMTA board meets on June 16. The SFPUC commission meets on June 23. I requested information before those meetings, financial information, which I am told is not available yet, the appraisal and everything else. But the PUC is going to talk about a sale of the property in less than a month. And so I think we have to set it for a date that the city tells us we can get some meaningful information and hold a meeting before those two, because we've been asked to advise on this process. And boy, those are two very important meetings.
Let's discuss that with staff and get that going.
But I mean, don't others agree that we should meet before? I mean, the staff, you can discuss it with staff, John, but this is a meeting of a public meeting. I'm most concerned with the Brown Act not doing it publicly.
I'm just saying that we can't set a date right this minute, but I agree with you that we need to do that soon.
I'm talking about the desire of other members of this committee to have a meeting before these important meetings. I'm not talking about specific dates, but don't other people think we should have a meeting and get numbers before the meeting on before there's two important meetings? And let the public have input into it. What do others think?
Any comment from anybody else?
Yeah, can I make a comment?
Oh, you're from the public, but we'll let you go anyway. Go ahead. I'll give you 2 minutes.
All right. Yeah, I just want to say that, you know, as a resident of Ingleside since the early 2000s and then Sunnyside resident, as well as being a City College student as an undergrad and continuing education as a professional, I support a taller structure. 78 feet sounds too short. I support fewer parking and more money for mass transit infrastructure. One of the things that's really notable in all the comments is we all pretend to speak for students, but if we want to speak for students, we should have more students telling us what they want. And I'd like to reiterate that all housing is a luxury when the supply is so low. So if you want to talk about luxury housing, everything is if you can't afford anything. And also that, you know, people are talking about parking for students, but owning a car is a luxury, maintaining a car is a luxury. And so when we're supporting parking instead of housing, we're supporting people who already have an advantage. And if we want to continue supporting City College students, we need to support affordable housing, which means all housing, and support affordable transportation systems, which means pushing legislation that provides more funding for public transportation.
Okay, thank you. I'm glad you were able to get in there. But I'm going to close public comment at this point, and we'll get back to, does anybody have any response to what Michael said about holding another meeting in the next near future?
This is Mark. The next planning commission meeting is May 28th, where they have the EIR certification. That doesn't really leave a lot of time. I mean, it's basically next week. So I'm not sure how that would work logistically. If staff are able to get information. The other option, it's not the best, but all these meetings are public. So the public can attend any of these meetings and get the information.
I just want to chime in too that we have an office hours scheduled for Thursday, which is another opportunity to participate in another public event. So that'll be Thursday, this same link from 4 to 5:30. So if people have additional questions before that, it is a public meeting and a chance for people to ask questions and comments. No new information is presented, but if there's additional comments or questions or discussion that's wanted before, please do come on Thursday.
Mark, I was commenting not on, it's unrealistic to have another meeting in 10 days. I was talking about a meeting sometime before June 16. That's the next important meeting. And I'll leave it up to John, but I really think it'd be a huge mistake not to try to schedule a meeting before then and to get financial information from the city so that we can make meaningful recommendations.
Okay, I hear you. And we'll bring it up with staff in the next phone call we get. We will, I'll see what we can do.
And I actually support that too.
Thank you, Mark.
Yeah, I think I do too. All right, I'm tired and I would like to get some dinner.
Thank you everybody who's still on the line for bearing through all of this. It's really difficult to do this, but I think the staff of the city did a fantastic job using Zoom. I personally like it much better than Microsoft.
Yeah, no, it worked very well. And we had, at this point, we still have 41 people online, and I think we were up to 55. So we had a good crowd and a diverse crowd too.
And I want to say one other thing. If you have a comment, you can also send it in to Lee. She's very good at putting it on the website for people to review.
Lee Latensky, right? Okay. Well, with that, I will close the meeting.
Move to adjourn.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank
you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thanks to everybody who helped. Thanks to the staff. Appreciate that. Just going to stick around and watch everybody go away. All right. Okay, well, I guess that's it. Can't hear what your mouth is moving, but.
Good night. That's all I said.
All right.
Good night. I'm going to end the meeting, and I think that'll end it for everybody.
Okay. Good night.
Okay, goodbye.
Bye. Goodbye, Theo. Theo with his hands. Leaving the meeting.
Hey, Sue, are you able to stop the recording, pause the recording and download it?